Chapter 204. The mysterious first one. There are a million girls. How could I propose to all of them? Yunshi was going out of his mind. Yunkei's plan had almost destroyed Yunshi's outlook. Can anyone imagine it? A man would propose to a million unmarried girls and achieve success eventually? How can it be possible? There are a million girls. Even if proposing to a girl needs a minute, then repeating it a million times would need. No, stop calculating the number. I will go crazy. Even if this was just a dream, a trial world, Yunshi still didn't believe that he had a chance to accomplish this insane plan. Compared to this plan, the truculent green hippos and the stone soldier army were just nothing. At the least, when he had challenged the green hippos and the stone soldier army, he had had the confidence that he would be the last winner. However, this expansion plan, a million brides, was far beyond his imagination. Of course, it's impossible to propose to them one by one. Therefore, you need to be selective, determining your focus targets. Since Yunkei had prepared to carry out this plan for Yunshi, she would naturally do her best. No matter how insane, ridiculous, or absurd this plan was, since Yunshi's white emperor mask contained that power, then she must help him with all her strength. Only Yunshi's cheat-like Mist Soul Army could fight against Shea Longness, the Sky Sword Slime Army. It was right to use all their resources to obtain victory, wasn't it? Only the winner could record and rewrite the history. The focus targets? Yunshi sensed an unusual feeling from her words. Of course, in your Mist Soul Army, there are some special units, right? These special Mist Soul girls are the core of your Mist Soul Army and the keys to leading your Mist Soul Army to victory. They are the hero units in your Mist Soul Army. So, if you want your Mist Soul Army to be the strongest, they are irreplaceable, Yunkei said with clear logic. Mist Soul Army was a fantastic army that was beyond any mortal's imagination. No word was overpraised to this matchless army. Because Yunshi's White Emperor mask could create such a frightening army, thereby the Water God's camp stood a chance to defeat Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. Since that was the case, the Mist Soul Army deserved to have the best members. If there wasn't a limiting condition, Yunkei had even wanted to let all the females in Water God's world join Yunshi's Mist Soul Army. My hero units, naturally, Huayu, Xiao Chao, Hua Hua, and the twin witches appeared inside Yunshi's mind. With the Water God Temple's help, Yunshi had confirmed the locations of Huayu and Xiao Chao. The same as the other girls, they had also lost their memories and thought that they were natives. However, he couldn't find any trace of Hua Hua and the twin witches, as if they had never appeared in the Water God's world. Of course, that was impossible. Yunshi had an ominous presentiment. They had perhaps joined the other camp. Besides, Yunshi hadn't found Lu yet. He was afraid for this little girl, who was cast upon the horrible, desolate island whilst looking for her father. Yes, I have made a list. Speaking of this, Yunkei hesitated for a while, then made her decision quickly. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. If she wanted to win, she must risk everything. She wasn't a chosen one like the man named Yunhai. She had to pay a real price to win. In order to survive, she had given up any impracticable dreams from a long time ago. Therefore, this is my own choice. You are really pushy, Yunquebec. She should have felt happy for having such a perfect partner. However, there was something he would never accept. For victory, I can be unscrupulous. You and I are just two waves in the river of fate, nothing more. Yunkei turned around and left. To survive, there is always something that people have to face, no matter whether they like it or not. Yunhai, we must do it. It's unavoidable to both of them. The wheel of fortune was still turning. In the middle of the night, Yunshi was walking on the street. Thin mist had wrapped his body and covered his mask. Otherwise, he would get involved in trouble if he was recognized by others. He was going to the seashore. Yunkei had told him that the first girl he should propose to was waiting for him there. To be honest, Yunshi didn't know how Yunkei had made the ranking list and who the mysterious first girl was. But, on Yunkei's list, this girl was the top priority, which meant that Yunkei thought that the girl could be the main core of Yunshi's Mist Soul Army. Who was this girl? Why did Yunkei have such a high opinion about her? Yunshi was curious about it. In Yunshi's mind, Yun-Kei was a serious man and would never bend his principle for selfish ends. Even frustration and crushing defeat wouldn't be able to shake his spirit and will, and he would definitely find the slimmest chance of survival in any hopeless situation. He had learned his mind's eye in such a situation. As an archer, his attack was always deadly. Both his battle experience and strong will had let Yun-Shi concede that he was better qualified. It wasn't a gap that could be filled within a short period. Since he was so special, then who was the girl he specially chose for Yun-Shi? With curiosity, Yun-Shi arrived at the seashore. Sitting amongst the jagged reefs, the girl was looking at the moon. Her slim figure looked lonely, and her black skin, sharp ears, and the black bandages on her body had all exposed her race and identity. Dark elf, Yun-Shi froze. His body couldn't help but shiver. It's her. Chapter 205. Familiar and strange that night. As if Yun-Shi was swimming in a tropical ocean, a sweet and hot feeling wrapped around his body. She was warm, soft, and gentle. Yun-Shi had obtained his most amazing experience in that dream, which he hadn't learned during the summer before from the big sister. So far, Yun-Shi still remembered the sweetness of the dark elf's tongue and the marvelous, wonderful time they had spent together. In her deep pupils was his wildest desire that was hiding inside his heart, and his emotional expression relaxed after realizing this. Pain and sadness. Yun-Shi could sense a slight feeling of strangeness from her expression, as if she was suffering a great pain. Her black hair was smooth, and her beauty was breathtaking. But her slim body shivered, and her groans sounded like she was bearing something. During that night, he kissed her lips under the moonlight, and bit her neck with soft love. She looked puzzled in his arms, and she always struggled to be free, but his hands tightly grasped her on his knees, and he kissed her in various ways. His kiss was like the flowers that were falling, continuously dropping on her ears, cheeks, eyes, brows. She sighed and groaned, hesitating whether she should resist this comfortable experience, till he raised her chin and frantically sucked her tongue. She finally opened her eyes wild in fear. Yun-Shi had firmly remembered all her attractive appearances. Her red lips were cold and soft at first, but soon afterwards, they became hot and smooth from his kissing. He could remember all the details, but did it really happen? Or was it just his imagination? Yun-Shi couldn't figure out which part was his dream and which part was the reality. However, it was undoubtedly an unforgettable night, and he had decided to bury it in the deepest levels of his heart and keep it unseen. He hadn't expected this. Why? Is she here? Who is she? Where is she from? And why would she do it with him that night? Yun-Shi had too many questions, but when he tried to open his mouth, he found himself speechless because he knew too little about her, and he didn't even know whether it was just a dream. Was it really just a dream? Yun-Shi had never confirmed his feelings about it, till now, when he saw her face again. Making sure that she was as real as all living beings in the universe, finally, he understood that something had really happened between him and the dark elf girl that night. Remembering the passionate scenes, Yun-Shi's face turned red and hot. He could barely look at the dark elf girl, who was sitting on the reef and watching the tidewater washing across her slender feet. Basking in the moonlight, somehow, she looked heartbreakingly lonely. The vast sea and the silver moon formed a romantic background, but she was still alone, as if she had been abandoned by the whole world. I want to reach for her and ask her what happened that night. Yun-Shi had an unprecedented, strong impulse in his heart. Are you there? The dark elf girl heard Yun-Shi's footsteps. She turned around and rose to her feet. Her round toes were spreading a special young girl's aura. Her skin wasn't the healthy tan but night-like black, but her eyes looked so lonely. No, perhaps it was because she had been used to being lonely, so he couldn't find it in her pupils. The assassins from the darkness were doomed to bear loneliness and act alone. Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Black Moon, a qualified Dark Elf commander and logistic officer. I have the experience to handle troops. I think I'm eligible to be your Mist Soul Army's commander, the Dark Elf said, espousing all her advantages. Yun-Hi's Mist Soul Army was the biggest trump card they had. She couldn't just sit quietly and look at Yun-Shi wasting this ability. Therefore, she must control his army even though she hated to use this method. But why is Yunhai's expression so strange? He looks excited, confused, and nervous, as if this isn't our first meeting. It's impossible, because I'm the Black Obsidian, the Lonely Assassin, the 10 Leaves Alliance's elite, and a rare dark elf. He shouldn't have seen my real self before. She was from the darkness and would return to the darkness. Because of the justice she wanted to protect, she never had a long relationship with anyone. Black Moon was just a fake name, but like the name Yun Kei, it also contained a special, old meaning. In the legend, the Black Moon Prince was the child of the Dark God, just like Yun Hai, who was beloved by the Water God. Black Moon, it's a good name. Yun Shi took a deep breath. He adjusted his mood and asked the Dark Elf girl, "Will you become my bride?" Black Moon gazed at Yun Shi. Her answer would determine the world's fate. She knew that he wasn't a reliable man. He had the god's favor but didn't understand its meaning. He was beloved by the world and the god. He was the child of God, shining like the sun. As for her, she had to hide in the darkness and couldn't even have her own name. She had only her code name, Black Obsidian, and the borrowed name, Yun Kei. And even now, she still had to lie and use a new fake name. But it doesn't matter. She had known it since the day of her birth. She was always cursed by others and lived in a world that was full of prejudice and discrimination. She watched the shining world in hell and protected the justice in her heart there. Only this principle was what she wouldn't violate or doubt. Even fighting till the last second, she wouldn't put down the sword in her hand. For victory, she would be daring and unscrupulous. This was the path she had chosen, the abandoned one's path of justice. Black Obsidian felt uncomfortable, but still comforted Yun Shi. Her plan couldn't fail. It was a must-be to be the commander of Yun Shi's Mist Soul Army. To this end, she wouldn't allow any error. "You believe in me?" Yun Shi looked at the Dark Elf girl. He had touched every place of her skin, but she still didn't know that he was he. "Yes, I believe in you. I believe that you can change this world." This wasn't a lie but the truth. Black Obsidian was sure that Yun Shi was their only trump card to fight against Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. When the 3 high priestesses first saw them, their expression had explained everything. "You're watched by the god. You're blessed by the god. You're beloved by the god." She didn't need more evidence and had confirmed that Yun Shi was the chosen one of the water god's world. She must support him, becoming his power, then obtain his power to grab the last victory. Everything would be worthy, as long as she could win. To accomplish this, she could even sacrifice herself. Flamboyant slogans were meaningless, because she needed real power. Since she couldn't obtain Yun Shi's White Emperor mask, because it was Water God's charisma, at the least, she would try to secure control of the Mist Soul Army. Otherwise, her expansion plan of a million brides would mean nothing. "I will change the world? Do I have the power?" Yun Shi stretched out his fingers and stroked the silver mask on his face. It was a fake power of the emperor to the god, but to this world, it was the supreme imperial crown. "So, I have to carry this fate on my back after putting on the White Emperor mask? Yes, you're the chosen one. You're the beloved one. For the world, I swear to fight for you. So, propose to me. Let me become your bride." Black Obsidian bared her feet and gazed at Yun Shi with a serious look. "If this is your hope, if this is what you want, then, I want you to be my bride." Yun Shi said with his voice trembling. "It's different. It's totally different, this proposal. I should say it to my first love. I should say it to Hua Hua. Why did I say it so unthinkingly to her?" Yun Shi's heart beat nervously. He waited for her answer, as if he was really proposing to his most beloved girl. "God, is this world abnormal, or have I gone mad? The great stars, why did you create this plan to love, Starchild? I'm willing to be your bride. I'm willing to become the commander of your Mist Soul Army." Black Obsidian let out a sigh of relief. "Finally, I did it. It doesn't matter. It isn't dirty. It's for victory. I have to do it." Even though she had had an extremely bad impression of this man. Chapter 207. The Unsuccessful Proposal. Under the silver moonlight, the dark elf girl gazed at Yun Shi with a firm look, waiting for his answer. This was just one small step for this world, but was a giant leap for herself. She wouldn't allow any failure. At all costs, she must get engaged with this shameless, salacious bastard and obtain that position. The highest commander of the Mist Soul Army. Silence. A stillness as if death hung over their heads. She looked at himself first, then looked at the dark elf girl in confusion. It seems that we failed? Hesitating for a while, she said aloud the truth. He had proposed to the dark elf and she had agreed to his proposal, but the marriage contract still hadn't been established. In the list of the side quest for To Love, Starchild, there wasn't the 108th bride. She didn't know how to describe his mood, because he knew the reason why. She wasn't really willing to become his bride, just like the mysterious black-haired woman, the Dark Shadow Spider Queen. Failed? How can it be true? Shouldn't you feel weak to any irresistible and charmingly beautiful girls? Black Obsidian sputtered. Her plan all depended on whether she could control the Mist Soul Army. If she couldn't accomplish this step, then this world wouldn't have a future. Why? This guy has had so many brides. Why would he fail on such a simple thing? Am I not good enough? Speaking of glamour, the dark elf girl had confidence in herself. It's not my problem. I am being forthright with you. She quickly shook his head. He made up his mind to propose to the dark elf girl. This was his most sincere proposal, even amongst all his 108 times of proposal. If she was one of the Starwing's night girls, he wouldn't hesitate such a long time. To him, this dark elf girl, Black Moon, was special. He wouldn't be insincere, therefore, it wasn't his problem. But it's not your problem. Indeed, your character. After Black Obsidian cooled off, she had to admit that the Yun she knew wouldn't resist her charm. So, it's my problem. After making a painstaking analysis, Black Obsidian had finally realized that she herself was the biggest problem. The common point of your 108 times of proposal is, Black Obsidian gazed at Shi with an unbelieving look. How can it be true? The 107 girls. They were all willing to marry this shameless bastard. Weren't they just influenced by his identity of Water God's apostle, so they couldn't refuse him? How could they be so stupid? How could they make such a big mistake? Yes, they did so voluntarily. None of them had refused my proposal. If they didn't really want to marry me, then my proposal would not succeed, and they wouldn't become the members of my Mist Soul Army. They must accept me from the bottom of their hearts, she said seriously, telling her the truth. The side quest for To Love, Starchild, couldn't be simply accomplished by agreeing to his proposal. If the girls were being forced, the marriage contract would be invalid. He had never forced any girl to marry him. They were all volunteering. Wait, let me sort out my feelings. Black Obsidian's mind was in a mess now. The things that were happening was already beyond her understanding. One man proposed to 107 girls and achieved success, except the Dark Shadow Spider Queen. All the girls were volunteering to be his bride. Could such a thing be allowed? Could such a thing really happen? What's wrong with this world? Has it been twisted? If so, it meant that if she wanted to be the Mist Soul Army's commander, she must voluntarily marry this bastard too. Don't push yourself. It's okay. Shi sighed. He had prepared to face this failure. The dark elf girl, Black Moon, wasn't a member of his Starwing's Knight, nor a native girl who admired the Water God's apostles. She was a beautiful dark elf. How could she agree to a strange man's proposal when they just met for the first time? Yesterday, they didn't know each other. If Yunkei didn't bring her into contact with Shi, they wouldn't have met each other this night. Let this night become a sweet dream. Since he could meet the girl on the romantic seashore, Shi had felt fully satisfied. Why, how can it be? I won't give up. Black Obsidian ground her teeth and pondered the conditions of success of Shi's proposal. It isn't his problem. The problem is that I must want to marry him from the bottom of my heart. Can I do it? It was impossible. She hadn't had any idea on how to have a love affair with anyone. Her fate and justice had determined that she must walk a lonely road. Love was a luxury that she should never have. But now, if she wanted to become the Mist Soul Army's commander and obtain the power to change this world, she must love this man and marry him willingly. In normal circumstances, it's impossible. Black Obsidian gasped and thought deeply. I won't give up till the last second. Thinking, and keep thinking. Black Obsidian, you can't be beaten down so easily. For victory, you must find a method to accept this man's proposal willingly. If I can't accept him when I'm under normal circumstances, then a pinpoint of light suddenly flashed through Black Obsidian's mind, like a lantern in the night. Right. What if I'm in an abnormal situation? What if I can't control myself and is in a confused state of mind? She remembered that night, which she preferred to be buried in the deepest side of her heart and keep it unseen. Chapter 208. Black Obsidian's Choice. Yun. She looked at the dark elf with curiosity. Even now, after his first proposal failed, he still didn't understand what she was thinking. The encounter with her, the visions of her, and the hot, dreamy night with her. They were all too vague and visional. If Yunshi hadn't met her again this night, he would think that that night was just a wonderful and fantastic illusion, and that he failed to distinguish the boundary between the real world and the dream. Till now, then she appeared in front of him and summoned that memory again. He and she had spent such a night. He could vividly remember the soft touch of her skin, and, no, I shouldn't keep remembering this. I can't tell her the truth. She doesn't know that this silver-masked man in front of her is him. Let's go. I think I know a place that can help us solve this problem. Black Obsidian showed him a firm look, as if she had decided to dive into boiling water and walk on fire. Can we really be together? Yunshi looked at the dark elf's slim body, wondering if he was still in a dream. They were so close, yet so distant. He couldn't feel their hearts getting any closer. She was so beautiful and so lonely, like a fairy who had become accustomed to loneliness. This is necessary, because it's the only solution. Black Obsidian held Yunshi's hand and frowned. She had never expected to get into that uncontrollable state again, but she didn't have choice. Her hand is small. Holding the dark elf's hand and feeling that touch, Yunshi hoped that this moment would be eternal. Yes, this is that touch. The things that happened that night wasn't a dream. It was a real memory. The smooth, soft touch of her skin. It can't be wrong. Walking on Celian's misty street, Yunshi had butterflies in his stomach. Even though he had covered his true appearance with mist, he still felt that the people around them were looking at him and the dark elf with curiosity, as if they were some rare creatures. Indeed, Black Obsidian had special black skin. To the water god's world, she was undoubtedly a very rare creature. What is her race? She is too tanned. No, people can't have that skin by getting a tan. Her skin is charming and beautiful. Is she a girl taking part in the apostles' marriage ceremony? The people on the street were scattered, but they all looked at Yunshi and Black Obsidian, and put most attentions to the dark elf girl. Here it is. Black Obsidian ignored the people around them and arrived at the place with Yunshi, a place that good kids can't go to. A tavern? Deep in the night, the tavern was still open. Maybe it was already about closing time. There was only the shopkeeper, an old man, sitting in the tavern. I will book the whole tavern. Take out the best wines, and you can leave. Black Obsidian's voice sounded irresistible. Okay, you two customers, enjoy yourselves. The old shopkeeper looked at the beautiful dark elf, then looked at Yunshi's nervous face, showing an explicit smile on his face. Pa! With a snap, Black Obsidian had opened the bottle cap. It was a bottle of tequila that the shopkeeper purposely chose for them. Then, she firmly stared at the fiery tequila. She didn't carry a golden orchid with her. She had to hypnotize herself through quantity. As an elite assassin, she had never been drunk, so she didn't know how much she could drink. As a qualified assassin, she wouldn't drink any alcohol and would put all her heart into the mission during the period. In the past, she had once teamed up with a drunkard. As a matter of course, the drunkard caused a delay in the mission because he had drunk too much and died under siege. After that, Black Obsidian was always on guard against alcohol. Even though she always carried the best winemaking material, golden orchid, with her, she had never tried to drink any alcohol. She had indeed used the golden orchid when she was grievously wounded, but it was just a forced choice. She had no golden orchid now, so she had to drink to hypnotize herself. She was a person who liked everything to go according to plan, and she hated to meet any accidents. So now, she had to commit a crime on herself. Under normal circumstances, she couldn't force herself to accept Yunhai's proposal. Therefore, for victory and for hope, she had to be abnormal. This. She looked around the room uncomfortably. Deep in the night, in a closed room, a man and a woman in wine. Whatever she thought, he was in a very dangerous situation. For justice. Black Obsidian ground her teeth. She picked up the bottle and poured the liquid into her mouth. Wait, that's tequila. She was flabbergasted after realizing the words on the bottle. Tequila wine was a fiery spirit made by the juice of tequila. It looked transparent, but had a high alcohol content. Ordinary people would be drunk after a few sips. Naturally, no one wouldn't drink it in this way except newbies. What are you saying? Black Obsidian's eyes looked vacant. She wasn't completely drunk, but her dewy eyes had made Yunshi's heart beat faster. Let me drink with you, Yunshi sighed. For the first time after arriving at the water god's world, he had such a fantastic feeling. As a baker, he wouldn't choose strong spirits like tequila. Instead, he picked up a bottle of red wine and sipped it. In the dim tavern, Black Obsidian had drunk 3 bottles of tequila. Her eyes had half closed. Hiccup. Why? Why is this world so unfair? The situation was going the way Black Obsidian had expected. Normally, she wouldn't say these words, but now, she was showing her deepest feelings to Yunshi. Her shy and cute appearance combined to make a fatal attraction to Yunshi. Chapter 209. The birth of the king. She felt as if she had returned to her childhood. Only corpses were piled up on the inescapable battlefield. There was no justice in this land. She had to struggle for survival and had no time to think about anything apart from this. Beside her ears, she could still hear the evil gods roaring. It was extremely ruthless, mocking the whole downtrodden dark elf race. The chosen people of hell, fear, caves, and traps will accompany you all your lives. The people in the soil, wake up and sign the contract with death. Release the seal. Start singing and laughing. Offer your lives to me. Come to the grand banquet I am holding. The evil god's game was continuing. The despair was spreading. Then, a red arrow flew to the evil god from the sky. It broke and shattered everything. It burned the earth and ignited the sky. Ah, it's her. She is the justice I've been waiting for. The flames from the heroine's arrow burned all the evils into ashes. She sacrificed herself and obtained the victory at last. Black Obsidian hated herself because she was too weak at that time. She could do nothing but watch the events unfold. For that moment, she had understood that for justice, power was necessary, and for victory, one must pay a price. The so-called heroes were the people who could sacrifice themselves for their justice. Hence, she wanted to be such a hero. She wanted to protect her justice. For this, she could be unscrupulous, as long as it was necessary. She wanted to win. She wanted to obtain the victory more than anyone, because only the victor had a future. You are really a bastard, Black Obsidian said drunk. She shook the bottle in her hand and stared at Yunshi with her bleary-eyed eyes. What's in your brains that would make you accept 107 brides? It's so abnormal, and the world is abnormal too. Don't you feel strange? Yunshi looked at the dark elf in embarrassment. Indeed, it is abnormal, but it is the will of the great stars. It seems that the great stars has a different understanding about love than me. You're drunk, Black Moon. Yunshi stretched out his hand and touched the dark elf's hot forehead. How many bottles of tequila had she drunk? A bottle of tequila could knock out a hulking hunk, and she had lined up a row of empty bottles in front of her. Not enough. Black Obsidian stood up with a kind of stagger, then opened another bottle of tequila. Her mind hadn't been completely messed up yet. She still knew what she was saying. If she couldn't make herself lose her sanity, it wouldn't be possible to accept this man's proposal. Goo. As if she had given up on herself, Black Obsidian poured the liquid in the bottle into her mouth again. Gee. As if the bottom line had finally been broken up, Black Obsidian felt dizzy, as if the world was twisting and rotating in her eyes. She seemed pretty well lubricated. She looked at the dark elf with a bitter smile. I want to dance. I want to become the most beautiful, unique princess. Suddenly, Black Obsidian's eyes became soft and gentle. Throughout the chaos deep in her mind, she became a little girl again, without knowing anything about slaughter and war. Anyone could have such a dream. In this particular dream, the world was sunny and happy. As a bloody assassin living in the darkness, she had read a tale and had a fairy tale dream. In the dream and her fairy tale, the princess with glass slippers was dancing with the prince in a magnificent hall. However, she refused to accept the absurd end of the fairy tale and only felt envious of the happy time the prince and the princess were dancing together. Even in the fairy tale and in her dream, she didn't have the extravagant hopes to have a happy end. So, she only wanted to dance. Giving up everything and putting on the magical glass slippers and the gorgeous princess dress, she wanted to dance with her prince. Come here. Come dance with me. Being immersed in her fantastic dream, Black Obsidian stretched out her hand to Yunshi. As you wish, the most beautiful princess in the world. Yunshi was also moved. Subconsciously, he held Black Moon's hand. There was no music, but there was a fantastic rhythm echoing between them. No, I'm not the princess. If I can, I prefer to become a prince to save the world. Black Obsidian confided. Even in the dream, she had never hoped to be saved. She knew the ruthlessness of this reality, so she wouldn't rely on anyone. Therefore, she wouldn't be in love and wouldn't become anyone's plaything. She refused to become the best princess in the universe. Yeah, if it's what you want, you can be the prince. She could feel that the barrier between them was melting like ice. She was shining at this moment and was very much brighter than anyone else. She was like a perfect gem that was born out of the darkness, dazzling and sparkling. No matter how she thought about herself, a prince or a princess, her charm had made Yunshi's heart beat faster. Under the dim light, her lips looked sweet and irresistible, just like the scent Yunshi remembered that night. Therefore, you play the princess. I won't accept to be proposed as a princess, but if you are the princess and I'm the prince, it's okay. Being drunk in her dream, a genius idea suddenly popped out from Black Obsidian's mind. Yes, the solution is right here. Oh, I'm really a genius. Since I don't want to be the princess, then I will become the prince. As you wish. She looked at Black Moon gently. He didn't want to wake her up from her sweet fantasy. If you like, then I, the princess, will propose to the great Prince Black Moon. Yes, I'm not the princess. I want to be the king, to conquer all and dominate all, even if my crown will be stained with sin. All mankind, show your loyalty to your king. Black Obsidian raised her right hand. Then, a transparent sword appeared in her palm. The sword was forged with her justice, her victory, and her belief. It was a sword of justice and sin. She named it Black Moon. It was her lifetime of sin and her glorious crown. It was either a sword or an archer. It was her special artifact. Yes, I present my loyalty to my king. She looked at Black Obsidian with his bleary-eyed eyes. Then, he gently covered her mouth with his kiss. Chapter 210. The 108th Bride. The moment she kissed Black Moon's soft lips, the star system in his mind erupted with brilliant lights again. His 108th bride was different from the first 107 brides, because she had become a strong hero-ranked woman. No, it wasn't the hero-ranked field power that her water god's mask had granted her. She was already a real hero, especially after confirming her belief and persistence. After walking across endless battlefields and being stained with blood for the justice in her heart, Black Obsidian finally achieved her dream. Become a hero. She had finally surpassed the limit of her flesh and blood, stepping on the road leading to immortality. Black Obsidian wouldn't give up hope until the very last moment, and would always do her best to find the slimmest chance of survival from countless dead ends. Black Obsidian was such a hero. Even though she had been drunk, she still didn't dream to be a princess. Compared to being a princess to be saved, she preferred to be the prince to save everyone else. Yunshi respected and responded to her hopes. He proposed to her, not as a prince but as a princess. Yunshi gently kissed her, like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. His kiss was continuous and soft, arousing the very deepest memory in Black Obsidian's heart. She had always attempted to forget that memory, but her body had remembered it firmly. Gradually, she relaxed and opened her mouth, relinquishing to Yunshi's probing tongue. His tongue explored her small mouth and finally found her tongue in this lubricious world. Then, they forgot everything and drunkenly played with each other's tongue. This sweet, soft feeling was so comfortable, it was as if their bodies were melting. Puff. After this fairly intense kiss, Black Moon took a deep breath and looked at Yunshi with her drunken eyes. "My princess," Black Moon said. "If that is your wish, my prince," breathed Yunshi. Their genders and characters seemed to be exchanged at this moment, but they were both inebriated, so they didn't think that it was so strange. This was the prince and the princess's dance party. Holding each other's hands, they had forgotten everything. "More. I need more." Black Moon's whisper was sweet and seductive. "As you wish." Yunshi lowered his head and kissed her again. This was a sweet and soft kiss, and it would be a very, very long night. The young girl had taken off her shell and exposed her most supple part, becoming a girl who dreamed to be a prince. And the young boy had also responded to her as the princess, wisely offering her a sweet dream as the prince. Just like the fountains all over the city, this night was filled with bubbling happiness. She could feel the acrid taste of tequila in his mouth. It seemed like Black Moon was pouring the tequila into his mouth with her mouth. Just before she fell into a deep sleep due to drunkenness, he vaguely heard a familiar spell. Trace on. Ow. Shi, feeling that his head was swollen and so painful that he couldn't even maintain the water mist field around him. "Are you awake? Congratulations, you have obtained the strongest bride." Yunkei's voice suddenly reverberated inside of Yunshi's ears. Yunshi wasn't sure about if it was an illusion, but Yunkei's voice sounded much colder today, as if he was reluctantly talking to a filthy thing. Aren't you the person who introduced her to me?" Yunshi shook his head carefully and tried to remember what happened last night. Black Moon's passion still remained between his lips. He still remembered her cold mouth. He would never feel tired if he were to repeat the process of making it hot again. But what had happened next? She could vaguely remember that he held her in his arms. Then that strange feeling appeared again. He failed to confirm if it was a dream or reality. Did we cross that last boundary, or was it just another illusion? Yunshi didn't know, but his body felt very comfortable, as if he just tasted the most wonderful fruit last night. "Yes, I let her walk into your tiger-like mouth and become your victim," Yunkei said reluctantly, as if he were punishing himself. Even if it was for victory, that price was too high. This guy didn't warn me that his brides must be willing to marry him. If I had known that earlier, I would have spent more time working out a plan. But the result probably wouldn't change. Yunkei sighed. Yunhai was the sole owner of the White Emperor mask, and so, the only one who had the potential to defeat Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. As long as this fact didn't change, she had to sacrifice herself, no matter how unreasonable the whole event was. Last night, she made herself drunk, so that she could deceive herself into accomplishing that impossible quest. Even now, she had no interest in remembering what had happened last night, and what despicable method that bastard had used to deceive her into accepting his proposal. She had buried this memory in her deep subconsciousness. She was drunk at that time, so she wasn't herself. She was just an innocent little girl who was drunk and cheated last night. She couldn't accept it, even after she found that last night she had entered the 4th rank without any warning. It should have been a memorable time in her life, but due to the things that happened last night, it had become an indelible blot staining her life. Therefore, she hated this man all the more. No one could be more contemptible than this man in this world. Chapter 211. Her odor. Why? How could this man propose to 108 girls without hesitation? He is just a bastard who luckily obtained the water god's favor. Apart from this, He is just a lazy idiot. Even though his power could change the entire world, he still doesn't know to use it. If I had his power, I would have already. Yun-Kei shook her head. She didn't want to waste her time on thinking about the things that wouldn't happen. She was already an adult now. She had known the brutality of this existence. She knew the eternal rule in the universe of no pain, no gain. Not everyone had the good fortune to be loved by a god. Even the infinite love from millions of people, it wouldn't be more than the love you have granted to him. You have the whole world, but you only love this boy. Even though the world would end in misfortune, you would only offer the boy honor and hope, Yun-Kei chanted. It was the dialogue from a famous opera in Western God's domain, but it was also fit for their current situation. She knows just how wide the gap between Yun-Hai and her really was. Therefore, sacrifice is necessary. No matter what shameful things she had done last night, she had achieved her final goal in the end. Even though she couldn't remember the whole event, she still washed her mouth and body immediately after she opened her eyes this morning. What had she seen and what had she believed? What made her agree to this bastard's proposal? Submersing in an undue sense of guiltiness, Yun-Kei blamed herself. Why would I agree to this man's prerequisite, and what had he done to me? She thought with a shudder. Nothing in the world could make her feel more thrilled, unless it was the thing she had never seen before. She felt nervous and anxious, because she found that there was an unknown self lurking in her body. That self must be a slutty girl who was always immersed in desire and happiness. Otherwise, she didn't think that she would agree to that bastard's proposal due to love. I'm sorry, I was too rude to that girl last night, said Yun-Shi. Unlike Yun-Kei, who had subconsciously forgotten the things that had happened last night, Yun-Shi could remember all the details that was apart from the dreamy feeling. To Yun-Kei, it was a painful and disturbing night, which was much worse than the experience in the valley. At the least, she had no choice in the valley. But this time, she was willing to let down her defenses and deceive herself, and did the things she would never want to remember. To Yun-Shi, it was a fantastic, stimulating night. The mysterious, beautiful black moon gave herself to him after getting drunk, exposing her innocent and supple side in front of him. Her dream was different from all the girls he had seen. Even Yun-Shi's childhood sweetheart, Hua-Hua, didn't have such a dream. This girl was strong and independent because she did not and would not ever rely on anyone. Compared to being the princess to be saved, she preferred to be the prince to save the princess. No matter where she was from or what race she was, since she had such a belief, she would undoubtedly have a free, wind-blown life. The black artifact Yun she had seen last night was the crystallization of her belief and the assurance of her life. Black Moon is a good girl. Yun she didn't feel any regret proposing to her because she was really mysterious, beautiful, and charming. Even compared to Hua-Hua, Miley, Ely, and Elphyllis, her mysterious charm was still unique. Thank you, Yun Quebec. Your information was right. She is entitled to be my Mist Soul Army's commander. Can I see her again? Yun-Shi looked at Yun-Kei with expectation. Waiting for Yun-Kei's answer, Yun-Shi couldn't stop his heart from beating faster. No, you won't ever see her again. Never. Yun-Kei said decisively. What a bad joke. I have paid so much, and you still want more. As expected, you are just a scumbag. If it wasn't for the water god's quest and this world's future, I would never stay beside such a man. Why him? Why did you choose him? The great water god. You must be mistaken or something. Oh, I see. Yun-Shi sighed. He had expected it. The encounter with her was so abrupt, as if the threads of their fates just accidentally crossed together. Before last night, he had never expected that he would meet her again, especially in the water god's world, and sign the special contract with her. But, as long as we are still alive, someday we will meet again. Isn't that right? Yun-Shi smiled. He had firmly remembered Black Moon's odor and appearance in his heart. If they encountered each other again, he wouldn't miss her. No, I don't think so. You'd just bring disaster to her, Yun-Kei retorted. She smashed Yun-Shi's dream without mercy. You won't meet her again. After I accomplish the water god's quest, I will stay away from you as far away as east is from the west. Every second I stay beside you is just a kind of torture. You are my last choice for a mate in the universe to me. Did you wear perfume? She sniffed. He smelled a strange fragrance from K's body. It's not perfume. No. K spluttered. As expected, I hate this man. I hate him even more than Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. Chapter 212. The water mist field is expanding. You bastard. Go on out and deceive the other innocent girls of this world. K said in anger. As Shi looked at him in confusion, he kicked open the wooden door and ran away. That bastard. I have washed myself 3 times, and I can still smell his odor on my body. Disgusting. K decided to wash herself 10 more times today to wash off his damn odor. She would never forget this disgrace. Why was he so angry? He was the person who introduced Black Moon to me. Shi wondered. Looking in the direction where K disappeared, he realized that K was really upset at seeing him today. Maybe K is too upright and honest. She thought. Since K didn't know of my strange side quest for to love Starchild, it's excusable for K to think that Yunhai was a scumbag. In fact, Shi also thought that he shouldn't propose to so many girls. It really sucks. But there was no way that the stars would let him stop. This was the only way the stars had pointed out for him to save this world. Browsing the star system in his mind, Shi sighed again. There were 2 main quests. One was to help the water god, and the other was to help the Sky Sword. Because he had been chosen to be the water god's apostle, the quest of becoming the Sky Sword's subordinate had turned gray. Optional side quest 1. Girl fights evil dragon. A brave girl is looking for an evil dragon. You can choose this side mission after you join human camp. Because Shi had joined the water god's camp, this side quest had become unselectable. However, Shi knew that it hinted that Hua and the twin witches were fighting against an evil dragon somewhere. Optional side quest 2. The Apostle's Call. A great apostle has reached this world. Swear your loyalty to her and become a dragon god's subordinate. You can choose this side quest after you join Water God's camp. This side quest was still vague, because Shi hadn't known who the apostle was. Optional side quest 3. The Truth of the Mist. The people on the island are living in a world that is surrounded by endless mist. Go find the secret and expose the truth. The current situation of this side quest is, you have finished the first phase of the side quest 3 and have obtained the White Emperor Mask's power. Go inside the mist and find the strongest monster, Mist Demon. To Shi, the side quest 3 was most likely to be achieved in a very short time. Optional side quest 4. To love Starchild. Life is too short, just enjoy it. Propose to as many girls as possible. After obtaining their marriage contracts, you can have the girl's power. You are never alone. It seemed to be a quest that was impossible to be achieved, but Shi had made great progress on this. Because it didn't limit the number of Shi's brides, so K could help Shi make the expansion plan of a million brides work. Secret quest? This will be available after you have finished 3 side quests. It seemed that this quest was lacking information, but if Shi had had a guess, it was very likely that this quest was about Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. Reading the quests again, I suddenly find that they are really difficult. Shi had a feeling that he had just taken the first step in a long march, and the first step was accomplished completely due to his 108 brides. Let me test how strong I am now. Shi took a deep breath as the water mist spread around him. Black Moon was the first hero-ranked bride in his Mist Soul army, and the power from her had surpassed all the other 107 brides combined. Naturally, she was the most important one as the core of his Mist Soul army. For the first time, Shi obtained tremendous power from a hero-ranked person. His powers were bolstered. The first was his visual field. In the past, he could vaguely see the things within the range of 10 kilometers with the help of his water mist field. And now, he just stood on the roof and could see the bricks 10 kilometers away with his naked eyes. Is this the so-called clairvoyance? Looking around, Shi's pupils contracted. Instantly, he had firmly remembered the city's terrain in his brain. He had a photographic memory now. It wasn't his talent, but a natural ability he had obtained after his mind had been strengthened countless times. It was an ability that was close to the limit of mortals, the ability only the best archers could have. Not only that, but his breathing and heartbeat had been adjusted spontaneously also. It wasn't a secret breathing method like what he had learned from Hua Hua, but a talent learned from countless battles, which had become a natural state of his body. Fog up. Yunshi raised his right hand. Under his control, the water mist sublimated and arose from the fountains and streams and covered the whole city. Instantly, Celian has become a city of mist. Some girls of the aquatic races had risen up and bathed in the fountains and streams. Now they cheered with happiness. Yuanshi's water mist field contained a trace of the water god's power, which was very good for these, the water god's people's bodies. No wonder that they had an extremely happy look on their faces. 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, finally, Yuanshi's water mist field had covered the area in the range of 50 kilometers, covering half of the city inside it. 5 times larger than before? Yunshi mumbled. No wonder Yunkei recommended Black Moon to him. She was surely the strongest one amongst all the girls in his Mist Soul army. Yunshi thought, and in that very moment, Black Moon's Mist Soul had appeared beside him. She was confident and strong, mysterious and beautiful. After condensing from the mist, she held the black sword in her hand, standing beside Yunshi like a prince. Chapter 213. 3 targets. We meet again, looking at the girl in front of him. Although Yunshi knew that it was just a shell formed by mist, he still immersed himself in her dangerous and mysterious aura. She was different from all the other mist souls, because she had a strong determination in her eyes, as if nothing in the world could shake her will. Yuanshi's heart was beating fast. Unfortunately, she wasn't real. Mist souls were just a simulation of the real people. It just reflected a part of her aura, not her whole person. After all, his white emperor mask wasn't the almighty. Where were you from? And why did you come to me? You wanted to become a prince. Did you get your wish? Yuanshi stretched out his hand and touched the mist soul. He felt cold on his fingers. It was natural, because the mist soul was just an agglomeration of water. This was mist soul's unalterable nature, and the reason why they couldn't die. After all, they were only an army taking the place of real people. What am I looking forward to? Yunshi couldn't help laughing for his foolish enthusiasm to a mist shape of Black Moon. Yes, she didn't belong to him. Even though she had agreed to his proposal, Black Moon wasn't his lover. She was like the cloud in the sky, which could be seen but could never be touched. The time spent with her was happy and memorable. However, she still refused to become his lover. Unlike the Starwings night girls, she was independent and free. You must be carrying a very heavy fate on your back. Black Moon didn't tell him anything new, but she could see it in her eyes. Her eyes were calm and cold, so beautiful and so dangerous. She must have experienced countless fights. He had been lured by her eyes, and his heart had been overthrown by her. He was having a sweet dream and didn't want to wake up. Then, let's fight together. After realizing that the mist soul wasn't really her, Yunshi immediately adjusted his attitude with his searing eyes. Even though they couldn't be a couple, at the least, he had the mist soul as the proof of their love. Shuffle. The mist soul held the black sword's blade up towards the front with an indifferent look. Undoubtedly, under Yunshi's permission, she had become the Mist Soul Army's commander and achieved her goal. A black flower was blooming in Yunshi's garden. Yunshi didn't know the reason, and one thing he was sure about, that they had never cooperated with each other before. But he could naturally understand the Mist Soul's thinking. As the strongest Mist Soul, she not only had a great executive ability, but also could act alone as well. You take them to defend the south, north, and western areas, and I will go to the eastern coastline, visiting the Lamia race. Yunshi assigned the task in an orderly manner. Yunkei's expansion plan seemed to be imprudent, but it really was built on facts. Apart from the mysterious dark elf Black Moon, who had become his Mist Soul Army's commander, the remaining 3 goals were all very important, even to the whole of Water God's world. On Yunkei's list, the second the third, and the fourth person all had the same identity, the water god's high priestess. It wasn't because of their influence in the world. The sequence was decided based on their power. The Lamia Queen was the queen of sea demons and the oldest hero ranked being in the whole of water god's world. Undoubtedly, she was the strongest one amongst the three high priestesses, so she could be recorded as the second on Yunkei's list. The Mermaid Queen was the third, and the Celian Queen, the highest-ranking human in the water god's world, was the fourth. Yes, Yunkei had already written them on the list a long time ago. To her plan, the power from the three high priestesses was indispensable. Since you're so good at deceiving girls into marrying you, then try your best to capture the three high priestesses' hearts with the fastest possible speed. Remember, they are very important to my plan. No matter whether they have married or not, you must let them join your Mist Soul army. Looking at Yunkei's familiar handwriting on the business plan, Yunshi twisted his mouth. Yunkei, you really misunderstand me. I have never beguiled any girl into marrying me. But Yunkei was also right. If he wanted to defeat Shea Longness, the Sky Sword, then he needed to strengthen his Mist Soul army to its and his limit. For this, the three high priestesses were really necessary. Three hero-ranked high priestesses. With them, my Mist Soul army can finally become fully operational. But I don't know any of them. How can I propose to them? Looking at the scarce information Yunkei had collected for him, Yunshi had no ideas in his mind. The three high priestesses were too exalted. Naturally, Yunkei couldn't find sufficient information about them by any ordinary method. Now, Yunshi was reading the Lamia Queen's information again and again. The Lamia Queen is the leader of the Lamia race. She is already thousands of years old and has had hundreds of descendants. She is the strongest Lamia in the Lamia race's whole history. Marriage status: unknown, because no one has witnessed any male Lamias. Her dating experience should be very rich. After all, she has hundreds of descendants. Anyway, go ahead and have faith in yourself. No matter whether she is a queen or a wife, it shouldn't be a problem to you. Chapter 214. Lamia's game on the seashore not far away from Celian. Yunshi was sitting on the reef and thinking. Splash, splash. Sea waves splashed on the reefs. Ah-ha-ha-ha-ha. About 100 meters away from Yunshi, a dozen Lamia girls were playing. However, their game was different from human games. A 1-meter blue water ball rotated, rose and fell in the sea with an ear-piercing whistle. It was about half a ton in weight, causing a series of circular ripples every time it rolled. These Lamia girls were playing with this frightful water ball with their screw-like tails, having an intense competition. If ordinary people saw this scene, they would be frightened into a cold sweat, because the water ball's weight was over half a ton. If ordinary people got hit by it, they would undoubtedly be severely injured. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to consider it as a kind of magical weapon. However, these Lamias could wrap and pat this frightful water ball with their tails at their command. To them, it was just a method used to practice their control force. Lamias had a strong tail, enduring physique, and a powerful bloodline. Their strength was even stronger than the green hippo. No wonder that they were called sea demons. After observing for a while, Yunshi thought that he knew the reason why the people in Celian didn't like to get close to the Lamia race. Compared to the mermaid girls, who had excellent talent for arts and were approachable, the Lamias looked strange and their strength was very dangerous to humans. It was said that their method of showing their love was to coil around their lovers with their screw-like tails, but their tails were so strong that they could even strangle a hippo easily. Imagine it. An ordinary person was wrapped up by their tail because they wanted to show their love. That feeling of dread and despair could scare away anybody. The gap between the Lamia race and mankind was just too wide. Suppose, if a Lamia girl just sneezed, then the person that was coiled in her tail would have been squeezed to death. However, from what Yunshi had seen, such a thing wasn't very likely to happen. The Lamias could control the water ball easily. It showed that they had confidence in controlling their strength. They were born with such a tenacious strength. Under the tutelage of the older Lamias, they learned how to control their strength through games. Their long tails looked dreadful to humans, but to themselves, Their long tails were the most important battle organs. They could even move at high speed on the ground with their tails, and their explosive force was also higher than that of a human's ultimate. What a strong race! Yunshi exclaimed. No wonder that Yun-Kei instructed him to propose to the Lamia Queen. The Lamia race could become a strong force to his Mist Soul army. However, Yunshi felt a bit awkward now, because he couldn't find any chance to intervene into the Lamia girls' game. Although there were already many dozens of Lamias that had arrived at Celian, they rarely talked to humans. They formed several small parties and swam in the streams of the city, exploring around in this old water god city with curiosity. Because the Lamia Queen was one of the high priestesses, humans couldn't refuse them to enter the city. However, they also didn't know how to deal with these appalling, half-human, half-snake creatures, so they could only pretend that these Lamias did not exist. The Lamias didn't know how to get along with other intelligent species too. Occasionally, they would talk to the girls from the mermaid race, but most of the time, they wandered around the city alone. Yunshi had searched half of the city, and finally found them on the eastern seashore. He didn't expect that they would not live in the magnificent palaces, but preferred to live in the dark caves besides the sea. Yunshi waited in front of the cave for half an hour. Then, he saw the Lamias swimming out of the cave. In the lead was several old Lamias. They played a game of water ball on the sea to practice for themselves. The game's rule was simple. The playground was a narrow rectangle that was about 1 kilometer long. The Lamia girls were divided into 2 teams, and the goal was to shoot the water ball into the other team's goal area. They could beat and bump their opponents with their tails, but couldn't use their hands. No matter what method they were using, as long as they could shoot the water ball into the other team's goal area, their team would get a point. The competition was intense, because the Lamias were striving with all their might for the win. They had used various hitting skills with their tails, which was really an eye-opening experience to Yunshi. Boom! Occasionally, such a dead sound would echo through the playground. It was the strongest blow from the strongest Lamias. Every time such a sound appeared, it would mean that one team had scored a point again. Without using any magic, they simply patted the water ball with their screw-like tails. Even so, the water ball had been accelerated to a speed that could smash any human in front of it into minced meat. Is it a kind of military maneuvers? Looking at them, Yunshi's forehead was covered with sweat. If they shot such a water ball on the battlefield, it would undoubtedly plow a long, deep gouge in the ground. No, they are just playing, and the water ball is just for training. When we are on the battlefield, we would normally squeeze the water ball 10 times tighter than the training water ball. Yunshi heard a gentle voice beside his ear, and then he felt that a cold, flexible thing had wrapped around his waist. Chapter 215. His identity was revealed. The long, screw-like tail wrapped around Yunshi's waist and felt him with curiosity, making Yunshi find himself both tickled and annoyed. He didn't expect that he would meet a Lamia in this situation, even though this was what he wanted. Before he had wasted any effort, the Lamia had come to him herself in this cordial method, which could frighten ordinary people to death. Hey, big brother, you smell good. What's your race? This Lamia was the youngest amongst all the Lamias that had arrived at Celian. Compared to the older Lamias, whose tails were about 6 or 7 meters, her tail was only about 3 meters. Therefore, she couldn't join her sister's water ball practice and could only play with a half-a-meter water ball alone. When she was playing with the water ball, she found something strange amongst the mist on the reefs. As the youngest, she was the last one who had seen the sailing jellyfishes, who were known as the Lamia race's great mothers. The memory about sailing jellyfishes was still vivid in her mind, so she could naturally feel the sailing jellyfish-like aura emanating from the creature in the mist. Of course, if the other Lamias had touched the mist, they would notice it also. After all, sailing jellyfishes were the Lamia's great mothers, because almost all the Lamias was born with a part of the sailing jellyfish's gene. In fact, the Lamias weren't turning a blind eye to Yunshi, but his mist had deceived all the girls' eyes. If this young Lamia hadn't come to the reefs to play water ball and noticed the mist due to this, Yunshi wouldn't have been found by the Lamias even after a day. Because his body was covered by the water mist, The young Lamia couldn't see Yunshi's appearance with her eyes, so she coiled around him with her tail and touched his body with it. This is your hand, and this is your leg. Strange, you are not a deep-sea octopus nor a shellfish. Who are you, big brother? Wrapping around Yunshi's waist with her screw-like tail, the girl asked Yunshi in confusion. Deep-sea races often covered their bodies in mist when they went on to land, so the young girl thought that Yunshi could be a deep-sea demon. This was also the reason why Yunshi could cover himself in mist when he was walking on the street, because people thought that he was a deep-sea demon too. Are you a mermaid? But big brother, you don't have a tail. The young Lamia remembered and couldn't think of any deep-sea race that was like Yunshi. In order to ascertain Yunshi's true face, she coiled Yunshi in her tail tightly and moved herself around to face him. Okay, I will show myself. Yunshi surrendered. It seemed that he couldn't keep hiding. Fortunately, he was going to talk to the Lamias from the beginning. Yunshi dispelled his water mist field and showed his face to the young girl. Your face. I have never seen such beautiful horns. Looking at Yunshi's silver mask in surprise, the young Lamia could sense the special energy in the silver horns on Yunshi's mask. This was the first time. She was so close to the water god's power. The god power in the horns was even heavier than the Lamia's great mothers, the sailing jellyfishes. Big brother, you must be from one of the strongest illusory magic sea races. The young girl looked at Yunshi with her eyes sparkling. As the youngest Lamia, she hadn't touched anything with such a strong sea demon feeling before. It was said that there were some rare races living in the deepest seas who had the ability to change their shapes at will. No, I'm not a sea demon, and they are not my horns. Look, it's just a mask. Yunshi told the young girl to touch his silver mask. It's beautiful and cold. Is it part of you? The young Lamia licked Yunshi's mask with her tongue, then his cheek and ear. Compared to coiling somebody in their tails, which was too intimate as an etiquette, licking each other's ear was far more intimate in etiquette to Lamias. It was a gift from the great water god. Yunshi looked at the young girl. Obviously, compared to the Lamias that were playing the water ball, she was still young in both mind and body. Even so, she still had the Lamia race's most striking features: enchanting eyes, vertical pupils, and flexible body. Coiling around Yunshi's body with her tail, she could do it as naturally as breathing. In close contact with the girl, Yunshi could feel the wonderful touch of her body. Her body was so soft as if she didn't have bones, which was really disturbing to Yunshi's mind. A gift from the great water god? Big brother, can you be that man? The young girl's pupils contracted. Due to nervousness, her tail coiled around Yunshi's waist tightly. If Yunshi was an ordinary person, he would have been squeezed to death. Yes, the silver mask, a legendary mask which contains the great water god's power. Its name is the White Emperor, and only the highest apostle who is beloved by the water god can hold it. He is that apostle. Yes, I'm the apostle, Yunshi said frankly. Chapter 216. A Small Promise, Big Brother. You are that? Maybe the young Lamia was too excited. The squeezing of her tail had almost become 2 times stronger. Fortunately, Yunshi's body had been enhanced by the power from his 108 brides and was being protected by the water mist field, so he didn't get hurt. Yes, I am. Can you let go of me? Yunshi literally understood why humans couldn't fall in love with the Lamias. No human whose rank was below the hero rank could withstand the Lamia's strong tail. If an ordinary person fell in love with a girl of the Lamia race, the only end for that person was being squeezed to death. Besides, the Lamia race had the snake demon bloodline, which meant that their copulation time was extremely long. It was said that snakes could take 12 hours to accomplish a mating without sleep or rest during the period. Obviously, it was impossible to any normal human. Oh, you really are the apostle. The young girl didn't release him but coiled around his waist with a much stronger force. Humans often hold their lovers tightly to show their love. When it came to the Lamias, when they got excited, they would coil around their lovers tightly with their tails. At this moment, Yunshi was really feeling the young girl's enthusiasm. Well, hello. My name is Fea, Lamia Gorgonfea. I'm 100 years old this year. the youngest child of the Lamia race. My height is 6 meters, and my breast size is, well, my breasts are not big but are still developing. I like to play water ball and hunt squid. I don't know if I can make you feel satisfied, but I want to be your bride. The young Lamia said with a red face. I want to have 20 children, so that they can form 2 teams to play the water ball game. Don't underestimate me, because I'm really good at playing water ball. You can ask my sisters about it. Although I can't join them because I'm too small, but they all call me once in 1,000 years genius. They like listening to my analysis about tactics. After learning Yuan-Shi's real identity, the young girl, Fea, became enthusiastic. She was the boldest and most radical girl amongst all the Lamias that had arrived at Celian. She was still young, so she hadn't become prejudiced to mankind. She was still full of curiosity for everything. Of course, have a baby was one of the things she was curious about. As the youngest, she still remembered her surrogate mother, a sailing jellyfish. After sailing jellyfishes disappeared in the deep sea for no reason, she was the most upset. According to the Lamia's tradition, she shouldn't come onto the ground and appear in front of the public because she was only 100 years old. Compared to the long life she would have, she was still a baby who needed to be protected by sailing jellyfishes. But after the last sailing jellyfish disappeared, she had to return to the Lamias and be brought up by her sisters. Because she had lost her great mother, the sailing jellyfish, she was eager to have a baby to get rid of the feeling called loneliness. She was only 100 years old. She thought that if she had a baby, she would be able to play with her child. The whole Lamia race didn't have any children apart from her, therefore, no one played with her all those years. All of the Lamia race was in a state of anxiety. After all, without the help from sailing jellyfishes, they couldn't produce any descendants. In theory, they could produce offspring if they could find strong, willing sea demons and obtain their genes. But the strong sea demons had also disappeared together with the sailing jellyfishes. No one had ever seen one of them in the last dozens of years. Fea, right? You are still young. You don't need to consider such a thing so early. Yuan-Shi looked at Fea, who was so innocent that she displayed all her thinking on her face. At any rate, I won't marry such a child. Even Yun-Kei's insane expansion plan didn't calculate for a child. A 100-year-old human was already old enough, but for the Lamia race, a 100-year-old Lamia was still a toddler, which could be proved by the fact that she wasn't allowed to join in the water ball game. She can't be my bride. Oh, I'm 100 years old. I'm not too young. I can have my babies. Fea threw out her chest in front of Yun-Shi, as if she was trying to prove something. No, you are too young. Yun-Shi refused her and moved his eyes away. It would become a crime if he married her, even though he needed as many fiancées as he could get. But Fea wasn't on his list. However, if it was the Lamia queen, Yun-Shi didn't know if he could control himself. Everyone tells me. I'm not too young. I'm not too small. I will grow up very soon. I'm a genius. A real genius. Fea cried. I can't marry him because I'm only 100 years old? No. Our race doesn't have any rule to prevent puppy love. This is so unreasonable. Calm down. Calm down. Don't cry. Looking at little Fea's crying face, Yuan-Shi had no idea what to do with his hands and feet. Sigh, at the least, I should give her some hope. How about this? I will marry you after you become a good woman. Don't you think that's good? Really? Can I? Fea looked at Yuan-Shi in surprise. Yes, it's a promise, Yuan-Shi said and nodded. Anyway, the Lamia race had a very long life. After she became a good woman, hundreds of years should have passed. Chapter 217. The excited Lamias then, we need to take an oath. Fea stretched out her finger. Seemingly she was going to draw a hook with Yuan-Shi. Yuan-Shi stretched out his hand. Fea held his hand tightly and gently bit his ear with her small, white teeth. Yuan-Shi felt a slight ache. Then he touched the bite mark on his ear. The oath has been signed. Big brother. Fea looked at Yuan-Shi with a happy smile. This ceremony of the Lamias was really strange. To Lamias, this was a ceremony for love. exchanging the Lamia's venom in her teeth and her lover's blood in his body. It represented the oath of never to be separated. Human moral principles meant nothing to Lamias. The exchange of bodily fluids was much more suitable than any oath in their hearts. Is it okay? She stroked his ear with curiosity. He only felt a slight ache with no side effects, as if he was just being gently licked. Yes, I'm satisfied. Fea smiled happily. The bite was just a small incident to Yun-shi, but to her and even the whole Lamia race, it was a giant leap. Sisters! Sisters! Fea happily danced around Yun-shi. She called to the Lamias who were playing the water ball game in a pleasant tone. The Lamias were resting at halftime. Just in time, they noticed Fea's call. What happened, little Fea? What's this mist? Anything good inside it? You look happy. It seems like good things are happening to you, Fea. Fea's long tail coiled, moving around to show her nimble and charming body. It was a dance called the Dance of Enchantment, an extempore dance the Lamias would dance when they were in an extremely good mood. Come on, come on. Fea's screw-like tail coiled around Yun-shi's waist again. Okay, don't push me. Yun-shi smiled bitterly. He thought that he should show himself now. After having a really close encounter with a Lamia, he realized that there were many mistakes in the information Yun-kei had offered him. The information said that Lamias were all snake-like demons, who were extremely dangerous and horrifying. They were strong, arrogant, and unforgiving. Once they thought that you were an enemy, they wouldn't give up before you had been torn into pieces. Humans and the Lamias were all the water gods' people, but humans refused to accept the Lamias and to live together with them. For a longest time, it had become a normal prejudice amongst humans. However, the Lamias were all very strong. Therefore, humans could do nothing to them and could only avoid staying together with them. That being said, what Yun-shi had seen was a healthy, energetic race. Even the youngest liked to practice every day. They were not demons who only liked moist and dark caves. They also liked to play under the sun and show their charms to the public. Maybe their special greeting was frightening to humans, but they didn't mean to do any harm. Coiling around their friend with their tails was just their way of saying hello. Dispel. Yun-shi dispelled all the mist around him and walked to the Lamias. Look, he is the apostle. The apostle our queen mentioned before. Fea was still tightly coiled around Yun-shi's waist as she waved her hands to her sisters. Then, the reaction of the Lamias was really an eye-opening experience for Yun-shi. At first, they fell into a shocked silence. They looked astonished and amazed and was at a loss for what to do. After a while, a Lamia exclaimed, "Oh, is he that man? I can't be mistaken. I can feel the great water god's power from the mist and his silver mask. Wait, why didn't we receive a notice? It's strange. Why are they so panicked?" Yun-shi felt puzzled. Do I look strange? Soon afterwards, he knew the reason. No, this is too sudden. I haven't put on my most beautiful jewelry. Whoa, don't look over here. My shell necklace. Where's my shell necklace? Go. Quickly, the Lamias swam away. They scrambled back into the cave, overturning their trunks and boxes. Don't take my jewelry, sister. Don't be silly. We bought it together. First come, first served. Where is my ivory comb? Oh God, who stole my pearl powder? Be quick. Don't keep him waiting. Yun-shi looked at the dark cave with a dumbfounded look. He couldn't imagine what was happening inside it. Sisters are very happy. They have prepared for this moment for a long time. Fea covered her mouth and smiled. Her sisters were dressing themselves up, and she had obtained the apostle's pledge of love. She was really proud of herself because she got it first. Wait, I'm the first. No, it's me. Stop quarreling. Let's battle it out. Boom. After several fearful explosive sounds, the Lamias finally came out of the cave. However, there were several Lamias in the first line looking flustered. It seemed that they had a fierce battle before coming out, so that they could find their position in the first line. Hello, great water god's apostle. We are Lamias. We came to Celian in response to your wish. According to what Yun-shi had seen, The leader of the Lamias was the strongest in the water ball game. Compared to Fea, who was still innocent and naive, apparently, the leader understood human etiquette. However, her tail was twirling behind her back, which had exposed the true titillation she was feeling. Not only was it just her. All the Lamias were looking at Yunshi with curiosity and excitement. They could clearly feel the water god's power from his white emperor mask. Chapter 218. Jealousy. Hello. As you see, I'm the apostle. As the Lamias looked at him, Yunshi couldn't stop his heart from beating faster. He felt nervous, because they were not just some village girls nor the Starwings night girls. Instead, Lamias were one of the strongest races in this world. Although none of these girls were at the hero rank, they were still far stronger than most living beings in this world. Lamias are a race that is at the top of the food chain in this world. Yunshi thought that even the green hippo couldn't withstand a single blow from them, because their screw-like muscular tails could play with the half-a-ton water ball as a toy. This was who the overlords of the deep sea were, the Lamia race. Oh, he is really that man. He speaks. He speaks. We're so lucky. Am I dreaming? The girls' excitement was running high. Their eyes were much more pure than any human girls Yunshi had met, with sparkling lights shining in their vertical pupils. They look very happy? I wouldn't have guessed it. Sisters, you are behaving very badly. Fea tittered. Unintentionally, her screw-like tail coiled around Yunshi's waist much tighter. Fea, let go of the apostle. You're being impolite. Yes, didn't our queen tell us that we shouldn't coil around humans so casually? Humans would feel scared due to this, so it's impolite. Fea, come back. I have some tasty treats for you. The Lamias noticed the compromising position between Fea and Yunshi, as a jealous expression came upon their faces. Why? Fea was the youngest. How had she become the first? Humph. My sisters are all liars. Fea exposed her teeth at her sisters mischievously. She made a face at them and announced proudly, I and the apostle have performed the ritual and have had those relations too. The Lamias were all flabbergasted. They all looked at her with a look of total disbelief. No, it can't be true. That was what all the Lamia sisters felt in their hearts. Fea, you're still too young. Do you know what you are saying? Those relations? Do you really understand its meaning? I didn't think that I taught you how to be a liar. Fea brought her face near Yunshi's ear with a naughty look. Then, she softly licked his ear and revealed the scar on his ear. Sisters, you are too late. Fea said flatly. Whoa. Why? Why? Fea has become the first. When did she do it? The apostle should have just arrived here. Oh, when we were playing the water ball game. No. Had I also went to practice with the water ball alone. The Lamias all cried, as if they had just been thwarted in love. This isn't good, and I shouldn't turn a blind eye to their circumstances. Yunshi thought. Well, I do think you are all misunderstanding something. I have done nothing to Fea. We are both still pristine. Yunshi explained the fact that he didn't commit a crime with the young girl. Yes, it's a secret of the adults. Apart from this, we are guiltless. Fea couldn't help but laugh. Shuffle, shamble, shuffle. Her words struck a heavy blow to her sisters' hearts. They became more agitated. Yunshi looked at the girls in confusion. It seemed that something he didn't understand was happening. What can I do now? There is no better way than to go marching forward courageously. I want to marry as many of you as I can. Fea won't be my only bride. There. I said it. It was outrageous and shameless, but in the water god's world, it could be forgiven, because it is the only method that I have to save this world. Gee, is it for real? So it wasn't fake news after all. The apostle really wants to have a lot of brides. Fea couldn't satisfy you alone? Yunshi's words were like a fire in the darkness or the sun in the chilly winter. His words ignited the girls' flames of hope. There is still a chance. They all thought. Since he wouldn't only marry Fea, then they still had a chance. Cough. Not that I mean that Fea couldn't satisfy me. I mean, Yunshi felt really embarrassed. Anyway, she is still too young. Isn't she? I wasn't going to do anything to her now, Yunshi said. What he thought he was saying was gibberish. It was true, but it still sounded like he was deceiving these innocent girls. Probably they wouldn't doubt his words, because they were so innocent. Yeah, the rumor was real. Apostle, could you be a man who likes the so-called harem? That doesn't matter, cried out one sister. We don't mind that at all, cried another. We are confident about our forthcoming night activities. Another sister confided, the rest nodding their heads in agreement. The Lamias looked thrilled. As expected, they wouldn't doubt the water god's apostle, so they accepted his words immediately. Humph, what a heartbreaker you are. Fea complained and bit Yunshi's ear again. Of course, she had known of this earlier. She just wanted to show off her trophy to her sisters before they found out. Did I succeed? Yunshi sighed. If possible, I want to be an upright gentleman. However, the world will not give me such a chance. Chapter 219. Their hope, the Lamia's support, is absolutely crucial to my plan. In whatever manner or way, you must marry them all, especially the hero-ranked Lamia queen. You must stake everything you have, because you are not being given the option of failure. Remembering Yunkei's order, Yunshi smiled bitterly. It really was a tough task. Fortunately, he did well, didn't he? These Lamias were really enthusiastic about him. Hey Apostle, what position do you like? I like the reverse cowgirl position. If we can get married, I hope that our nuptial night can last for 3 days and 3 nights, said the most excellent girl amongst all Lamias present. Incidentally, her breasts were also the biggest. I don't care what position it will be, but I do hope that you can stroke my tail at that time, said the second girl, who had the longest tail. When the sisters talked, Fea felt confused about the discussion. She was still ignorant to the carnal knowledge of being married. Sisters, what are you saying? Don't couples have babies simply by holding each other? Didn't our queen go to sleep in the sailing jellyfish's tentacles, then we were born? Asked Fea. Well, it was really a Lamia style. Yunshi knew of the process of Lamias being impregnated and giving birth. They could have babies simply by sleeping in the sailing jellyfish's tentacles. Of course, he wasn't a sailing jellyfish, so he didn't have such a fantastic ability. Therefore, if he wanted to make the Lamias pregnant, he had to use a more traditional, skin-to-skin method. Fea's sisters had learned this from the queen, and only Fea herself hadn't understood it. She was too young, and her sisters didn't teach her this knowledge, which she couldn't find in the books either. My sister's words are outlandish. Apostle, you will teach me, won't you? This time, it was Fea's turn to feel jealous of her sisters. She could feel a sweet aura amongst her sisters and the apostle when they looked at each other. Yunshi is completely misunderstanding the situation. For the first time, she saw such a happy look on her sisters' faces. Their bodies were spreading a sweet smell. The sweet smell was a unique odor of adult Lamias, which she would obtain in the near future since she was still too young. Fea had to admit that she was still too naive. Her aura was far inferior to her sisters. She failed to understand her sisters' enthusiastic smiles. With discontent and anxiety in her heart, her tail coiled around Yunshi's waist very much tighter. What is it? What is this knowledge I don't know, but my sisters all understand? Since she had signed the contract with the apostle, what was this unknowing that still made her feel uneasy? Who, as expected, little Fea still doesn't understand it. She is too young. It's natural that she doesn't understand it. When I heard that she had done that with the apostle, I thought, so it was just a misunderstanding. Chapter 220. Summon. As Fea looked at Yunshi with jealousy, the enthusiastic Lamias were chatting their hopes about a future with Yunshi. Apostle, how many children do you want to have? I think having 7 children is fine. They can form a team. The apostle's children will be handsome and beautiful. Only when talking about children did the Lamias become so excited. The Lamia race had had no new members for the last 100 years. The youngest Lamia, Fea, hadn't finished her childhood education in the sailing jellyfish's lair when they left, and had to return to the Lamia race, becoming their most favorite little sister. Therefore, they also hoped that they could have babies as soon as possible, so that their babies could play with Fea. No, the apostle has promised to me that we will have 2 teams of children. Fea was beyond her perseverance. She was the first, after all, the first one who found the apostle, the first one who coiled around the apostle's waist with her tail, and the first one who had obtained the apostle's promise. She was the first. Why were her sisters whispering endearments of love and baby-making talk with the apostle instead of her? It is so unfair. I can do whatever my sisters can do. Apostle, make babies with me. Immediately. Right now. Fea threw out her chest. Her bold statement really shocked all the people present. Yes, this is it. I must be a step ahead of my sisters. I don't understand the process, but it doesn't matter, because the apostle must know it. He can teach me. Well, Fea, do you even know what you are saying? Even the boldest Lamia was shocked by her youngest sister's words. I heard that your first time is painful. You are too young. Your body can't support you while you copulate for 12 hours. Yes, it's too early for you. Hey, don't be so straightforward with a child. She looked at the Lamias embarrassed, who were trying to persuade their youngest sister. At the same time, he also realized that if a person's body quality hasn't reached the hero rank, then it was really a bad idea to fall in love with any Lamia, because no ordinary people could copulate 12 hours straight without sleep and rest. Besides, it sounded like 12 hours was just the most basic requirement. These excellent Lamias were hoping for a copulation time of 3 days and 3 nights or more. She didn't even dare to imagine what would happen to him if he really married these Lamias. Probably, they would want me to carry on the responsibility for propagating the entire Lamia race. As for him, he only needed to stay in the cave and repeat the process of 3 days and 3 nights over and over again. It would really become a Lamia festival, but my body would soon collapse due to being overworked. I'm not small, and even if it would be painful, I can bear it. Fea pouted. She shouted seriously while holding her small fists clenched tightly. Yes, no matter what will happen, I can stand them all. This is the reason I can't do it, said She listening to Fea's statement. She understood how naive her mental age was. It really would be a crime. Oh, Fea cried. Is it all due to my age? She had never thought of that before. It's not my fault I'm so immature. Don't worry, Fea. You will become a most excellent Lamia woman, She comforted her. He wiped off her tears and smiled. You should be more confident. Really? Can I become the most excellent Lamia woman? Fea looked at She with longing. Yes, believe in me, Fea. You can become the most attractive Lamia. She hesitated for a moment, then said, because your body contains a very special energy. It was true. The White Emperor mask had let him find a hidden powerful energy in Fea's body from the beginning. It was a very powerful energy, but it wasn't stable. It was being sealed by something, which should be an artifact that was similar to his mask. Fea was different than the other Lamias, because she was carrying a very special fate. Maybe if she could release the energy in her body, she would be able to grow up quicker. Wait, if that came true, then how about my promise? She suddenly had a feeling that he was caught up in his own trap. I will become stronger than my sisters. Fea smiled through her tears after hearing She's prediction. This girl's bad mood was like the summer rain, here 1 minute and gone the next. After comforting Fea, She asked the Lamias around him, can you take me to your queen? I have to ask her something. Apostle, you're looking for our queen? She is in a nearby sea area, but do you really want to see her immediately? The Lamias asked. They felt unusual about She's request. Yes, it's important, answered She decisively. I have already come here, so there is no way back. Okay, let us call the queen then. The Lamias looked at each other, then formed a circle. Fea, please do it. The strongest Lamia stood in the center of the circle and waved her hand to Fea. I know, sister. Fea left She reluctantly. She skulked into the circle and nicked the blood vessel on her fin with her fingernail. A drop of crimson blood dripped into the transparent water ball in front of her and spread around in the water ball. Huh. The strongest Lamia swung her tail with all her might, whipping the water ball into the sky. The next second, all the Lamias hissed in a weird tone. At the same time, the water ball exploded in the air. With his mask's power, Yunshi could see the mist from the exploded water ball spreading around in the air. Soon after, the mist had covered a large area of the sea. Some information contained in the mist was being blended into the sea and spread through the water with an incredible speed. Boom! A thunderous sound came from a very distant place. We did it because the apostle wanted to see you as soon as possible. The apostle's dictate is of the highest priority. Thea even donated her blood. The young Lamias laughed. They didn't fear of the majestic queen, because half of them were the queen's direct descendants. Compared to calling her queen, they preferred to call her mom. It's not surprising for your daughters to act like spoiled children in front of their mother, is it? You kids, you are still unmarried and you already dare to disobey your mom? The Lamia queen sighed and shook her head. It seems that I must teach them how to become good ladies. They just came to Celian several days ago and have already forgotten the regulations of the Lamias. The ritual of summoning was called blood seal, which should only be used at the most critical time. She thought that they were in danger, so she immediately rushed to this place at full speed. Marry? Oh, we indeed need to discuss the date of marriage, said the young Lamias. I think the next full moon night is a good choice. We will all be vigorous at that time, suggested one of the more mature girls. The apostle wants a lot of brides, and Thea has become his first bride. The Lamias looked at Yunshi with longing and happiness. Well, does he? That's good. The Lamia's queen looked at her daughters in surprise. At first, she thought that the apostle would be very picky, therefore, only the several most excellent Lamias would be able to stand a chance to marry him. The Lamia queen thought, why does it seem that they all have a chance to become the apostle's bride? And why was it Thea? Why was she the first? What had happened? Well, Your Majesty, there is something I need to talk to you about, Yunshi said nervously. He hesitated for a while at first, but finally pulled up his socks. Since he wanted to marry the queen, he'd better tell the queen about his Mist Soul Army, so that it would be possible for her to understand and to agree to his proposal. Wow, we are not enough? You want to marry our queen too? You are really brave. Be forewarned, our queen is special. She is the strongest queen of the Lamias. The Lamias immediately realized what Yunshi was planning to do. They all looked at him with a strange look. Aren't you afraid of me? The Lamia queen looked at Yunshi in surprise. He has seen my true body and he is still not afraid of me? Based on her past experiences, no humans could be sane and sound of mind after witnessing her true body. Humans would instinctively be frightened by giant creatures. Her true body had become many humans' nightmare and made many people go insane. Yes, I have no racial prejudices, Yunshi said sincerely. When he met her for the first time, he had realized that she was very dangerous. She was the strongest being he had met in the water god's world. However, compared to his ex-girlfriends, she was nothing dangerous. Once he remembered that he was still being wanted by his ex-girlfriends, he immediately had the confidence to overcome all obstacles. You are really a strange child. The Lamia queen smiled and nodded. Okay, I will listen to you. Let's go. Chapter 222. Requirement: What's it like to experience a date with the Lamia queen? Well, the mountainous waves roared inside Yunshi's ears, as if the heavens and the earth had been reversed. Compared to Yunshi's water mist field, the Lamia queen's power was much more furious, like a moving natural disaster. 50 minutes later, she had took Yunshi into the open sea, which was far away from Celian. And this wasn't the destination. It was just a starting point. Come on, let's go to the water god temple. The Lamia queen shook her screw-like tail. Then, a 1-kilometer maelstrom appeared under his feet. As if there was a black cave that suddenly appeared in the sea, they fell into the maelstrom rapidly. When the Lamia queen turned into her human form again, They had stepped onto a world that She could have never imagined. The vault was covered in infinite darkness. Occasionally, some glowing fish swam across the vault. Millions of tons seawater was completely cut off outside of the building by some unknown power. The water god temple was under the deep sea where they may have been 10 kilometers in depth or more, but it showed no trace of being soaked by water. The body of the temple was made of rare marble, and over 10 stone pillars were supporting the temple's roof mightily. A big pillar was standing upright in the center of the temple, spreading a special sense of the water god's power. Welcome to our deep sea demons temple. In fact, this temple is even older than the temple in Celia. I am the water god's high priestess, the guardian of this temple, and the owner of the sea demon's mirror. The Lamia queen held Yuanshi's hand and rambled on the stone road, introducing the pride of sea demons, the deep sea water god temple. Humans weren't allowed to enter this temple, because this was the sacred land of sea demons and the homeland of the Lamias. The sea demon's mirror? Yuanshi could feel that something in the temple was resonating with his white emperor mask. It was similar to the holy scepter the Celian queen held, but the aura on it was much deeper and older. It's a relic for us Lamias and all sea demons. In fact, we Lamias weren't an intelligent race. We were just some beasts at that time. However, the sea demon's mirror transformed our life form so that we were close to humans. It was the key that has changed the fate of our race, the Lamia queen said gently. She led Yuanshi to the sacrificial altar under the giant black pillar. The same as other water god temples, there was no idol in the sacrificial altar because the water god didn't need idols to symbolize itself. It was already the supreme god in this world. On the sacrificial altar was a blue mirror, reflecting the endless sea in it. Occasionally, Yuanshi could even see some sea demons swimming across the scene in the mirror. Apostle, why do you want me to marry you? The Lamia queen asked and waited for Yuanshi's answer. In fact, it's about my white emperor mask. Yuanshi honestly told her his mask's ability and the news of the sky swords coming. I see. So it explains why I witnessed strange slimes in the deep sea. Is this world going to be changed? It seemed as if the Lamia queen had seen what was going to happen through Yuanshi's eyes. So, you need brides to offer you powers? I see. I can lend you my power. I can agree to your proposal. The Lamia queen smiled. Really? Yuanshi looked at the Lamia queen in surprise. He didn't expect that the queen would be so approachable. But, I have a requirement. The Lamia queen gave Yuanshi a mysterious smile and continued. If you want to obtain my love, firstly, you must love my race. You must accept all Lamias. Only in this way can I believe in you and fight for you without reservation. This is a promise of the Lamias. As long as you can do that, we will keep our promise. Really? Is that all? Yuanshi looked at the Lamia queen in astonishment. Gradually, his eyes misted and his face blushed. Why? Why did he think that she was so beautiful at this moment? Since you are the only hope of our world, then we actually have no choice, right? The Lamia queen's heart was beating faster because she was trying to use the Lamia's occult arts to entice the young man in front of her. Yuanshi had thought wrong. Compared to his needs, the Lamias wanted him more. The sailing jellyfishes had disappeared. Under this circumstance, Yuanshi was actually the Lamia race's only choice to father the future. This must be the will of the god. The Lamia queen believed this without a shadow of doubt. The world was being changed, and something new was happening. The disappearance of the sailing jellyfishes, the sky swords coming, and the appearance of the white emperor mask were all parts of the world's fate. Everything was the great water god's will. Then, I swear here, I will accept the whole Lamia race. I will regard all Lamias as my most precious treasures. I will protect and care them with my life. Chapter 223. Resonance, is this fine? Standing in front of the sea demon's mirror, Yuanshi put down his hand. Yes, that will do. We don't need more, because you are being loved by the god. The Lamia queen smiled and gently kissed Yuanshi's forehead. From now on, we Lamias will become your swords and shields, fighting for you. As long as there is still one Lamia in the world, the promise will never break. It seemed that the Lamia queen was really in a good mood. She blinked and teased, however. I myself still have a small problem. What's the problem? She asked in a hesitant tone. She was more mature than all the Lamias. Compared to the dangerous Dark Shadow Queen, she was more calm and leisurely. Her temperament could only be cultured by time. Her every move and smile could make She feel at ease. No wonder she was the queen of all Lamias. You haven't proposed to me. The Lamia queen pointed her fingers at She's mask and said in a naughty tone. She was dumbfounded. Not just me. You haven't proposed to those girls either, right? The Lamia queen said and looked at She with a kindly smile. It's a very important thing to girls. If you want to marry them, you should say it out loud courageously. In this world, once you have missed your chance, you will never be able to get them back again. She finally realized it. No wonder that the Lamias were so proactive, but the number of his brides hadn't increased. You are still too young. The Lamia queen held She in her arms and put his head on her chest. She whispered beside his ear as if she was tempting him. Say it. Say the magical spell. No girls can resist that spell. Don't worry, we Lamias have chosen you. No matter what happens, we will be always with you. Smelling the Lamia queen's pleasant body scent, She looked at her in confusion. This dream trial is too real. All beings in the water god's world have their special characters. They have their fate and make great efforts for their future. Why is this dream trial so different? The stars, why did you make me come to this world? I want you. I want you to be my bride, said Shi. He finally said the magical spell, which was an intoxication to all females. Even the infinite love from millions of people, it wouldn't be more than the love you have granted to him. You have the whole world, but you only love this boy. Even though the world would end in misfortune, you would only offer the boy honor and hope. The Lamia queen hummed the old poem K had chanted. It was a story about a man who was loved by the god. In the world of despair, only the man was saved. In order to save the man, the great god gave up the whole world. The god witnessed the world's death and only took away the man. In that story, people abandoned their god and chose to step on a brand new road, obtaining a power named science. However, a monster suddenly descended into the world. When science could do no harm to the monster when it started to swallow the world, people finally remembered their god. However, the god didn't respond to their prayers. More precisely, the god only responded to one man. In the dying world, the god only protected that man, because that man had never betrayed his god and doubted his faith. In the world, no one still believed in the god. The man was the god's last believer. Therefore, he became the god's only child. In the dying world, he was the only person who should be saved. This was the god's decision. When the world finally came to its end, the people sighed and regretted and felt jealousy of the chosen one. This old poem was the last elegy the people in that world had left. The Lamia queen looked at the boy in her arms, straining with eagerness. The great god, since you have chosen this boy, then we will follow your will, becoming his power, no matter what future we will face. The Lamia queen thought, then lowered her head and kissed Yunshi's lips. Inside Yunshi's cold mask, the water god's power naturally spread around and resonated with the sea demon's mirror behind the Lamia queen. In the mermaid palace, the shell jewelry on the mermaid queen's ears suddenly emitted a clear and melodious sound. Obviously, it was also resonating with the sea demon's mirror. We have been bested. The Lamias are too cunning. The mermaid queen brandished the trident in her hand with an unpleasant look. The great water god prefers me more. Why should they be the first? In the Celian water god temple, looking at the white rings which suddenly rang on the scepter, the Celian queen showed a complex expression on her face. The Lamias have made their choice. We should also decide it as soon as possible. Which way will the world go? The great water god, you will finally decide your bride? She woke up from his imagination suddenly. He remembered that the Lamia race had a different definition about copulation than a human. Even the most common Lamia could hold on for 12 hours, and many of them hoped to do it for 3 days and 3 nights. As the strongest Lamia, naturally, her mating time was much longer. 7 days and 7 nights. Isn't it enough? If you want, I can hold on for half a month. In order to make healthy babies, I don't mind if we extend the time. The Lamia queen gazed at She with anticipation. Sorry, I don't have time for this. She smiled bitterly. Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming had almost entered the 3rd phase. He really shouldn't waste his time. He had to refuse the queen's invitation, although the queen was really seductive to him at the moment. Well, what a pity. Fortunately, the Lamia queen also realized that it wasn't the time for doing this. Then, in recompense, give me one more kiss. The Lamia queen acted like a girl in love, behaving in a spoiled manner. She held the queen's waist and licked her neck. The queen emitted a pleasant sound and stuck out her chest, catering to his behavior. The world is too strange. Feeling the soft body in his arms, she felt more confused about this world. Puff, puff. Keep on, keep on, keep on. Honey, honey, let's copulate. Wow, whoa, whoa. A magical voice echoed around and above the old sacrificial altar. A pair of liquid eyes quietly opened inside the sea demon's mirror, gazing at the Lamia queen and Shi. Chapter 225. The Sky Sword's footsteps as Shi and the Lamia queen whispered sweet nothings of love in front of the sea demon's mirror. In the dark abyss under the ground, countless green slimes were merging with each other and evolving. The dark shadow spider was gracefully sitting on her throne of spider threads, looking at the crowd who were kneeling to her. Hail to the queen! Our queen will conquer the world. We must help our queen defeat the evil water god at all costs and declare the glory of the Sky Sword. The dark shadow spider queen lateraled her head and exposed her snow-white neck, looking at these people with a scornful smile. Obviously, these people had all been conquered by her charm. Simple. It's too simple. Compared to how hard she tried recruiting that man, enchanting these men was as easy as breathing. She just cast the simplest charm magic. Then these humans, who were upset about the water god from a long time ago, immediately surrendered and joined her camp. They were the water god's people at first, but they formed a dark cabal, trying to overturn the people's belief in the water god. Naturally, they failed. So they became a crowd of mice who never dared to expose themselves in front of the public. The dark shadow spider found one of them, then dragged out the entire organization. She had almost caught all the heretics in her first draft. Do you want power? The dark shadow queen asked and looked at these fanatics. Her fingertip crossed in the air. Then a group of green slimes appeared in front of these people. Oh, they are the god's graces. The legendary Sky Swords will. The water god will die, and we will rule the new era. In these people's hearts, Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's coming was the last hope to save this world from the evil water god's hands. They were revolutionists and rebels. They would overthrow the water god and rebuild the world. They could do everything in order to kill the god, because this will had been inherited from generation to generation and had become their obsession. Shea Longness, the Sky Sword was the key that had released the obsession in their hearts and the flame that had ignited the madness in their minds. Come on, praise and accept the coming new era. The Dark Shadow Queen waved her hand. Then, these green slimes jumped to these people's faces and wormed into their noses and mouths. Oh. Ah, I felt it. I felt it. This is the god's power. This is the great Sky Sword's grace. These men shivered and twitched, emitting inhuman roars from their mouths. As the Dark Shadow Queen watched them with an enjoyable look, their bodies started to transform into monsters. They were not humans from now on. This was the price of power. After abandoning their human bodies, they obtained high-speed recovery capability, strong flesh and bones, and demon bloodline. They wouldn't die even if their hearts had been pierced through. That's enough for them. After all, they can't bring me much more value. Looking at these men, no, green monsters now. The Dark Shadow Queen shook her head disappointedly. It would be an idiotic nonsense to defeat the water god with these human traitors. But if she let them hide amongst ordinary people and sabotage at the right time, they could be of some use. However, only Shea Longness, the Sky Sword, could lead them to win the coming war. The Dark Shadow Queen could feel that as more and more special slime units appeared, the speed of the Sky Sword's coming had become faster and faster. Once the Golden Slime King appeared, the slime network would be finally formed in this world, which also meant the start of the war between the Sky Sword's camp and the Water God's camp. Some people are coming? The Dark Shadow Queen sensed that a team of humans were getting close to her location. Is it here? A man asked with puzzlement. The next moment, a strange, snow-white creature walked out of the darkness and looked at these green monsters with a leisurely look. Yes, this is the Sky Sword's base camp. We will cooperate with the Sky Sword. Is it fine? Yunhee? A man asked. Leave it to me. Believe in the god who led us out of the mist. Another man promised. Soon after, a group of people walked to the Dark Shadow Spider Queen. Where are you from? The Dark Shadow Spider Queen sniffed. Their odors didn't belong to the water god's world. They were outsiders just like her. We are this god's followers, and our god wants to cooperate with the great Sky Sword. Their leader, Child Yunhee, said. He measured the Dark Shadow Spider Queen with his questioning eyes. She is beautiful. Child Yunhee swallowed as he looked at the Dark Shadow Spider Queen's white skin and deep black eyes. He had been spontaneously seduced by the Spider Queen's dangerous charm. Agree with them and let them become your subordinates. A voice suddenly appeared inside the Dark Shadow Spider Queen's mind. It was the direct indicator from Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. Is it your god? The Dark Shadow Spider Queen looked at the strange white creature with interest. She could feel a very special power from it. Yes, it's our god, the great Tlahuiz Kalpantakutli. As an evil god's apostle, Child Yunhee had actually become the leader of the Sword Palace disciples and started to preaching. Unfortunately, there is no alpaca in this world. Otherwise, I can sacrifice them to enhance myself to an incredible extent. Child Yunhee thought regretfully. Very well, finally, I have some good subordinates. The Dark Shadow Spider Queen nodded with satisfaction. This strange white creature could be a strong external assistance of the Sky Sword's camp. Not only that, on a distant island, several strong hero rank girls were on a special training mission. They would also join the Sky Sword's camp after making their choice. Shea Longness, the Sky Sword's will was indeed invading and changing this world step by step. Chapter 226, Escape from the Mist Island Roar. The giant dragon's roar echoed between the heavens and the earth. As the overlord of Mist Island, the White Bone Dragon was having a fierce battle with its invaders. The Bone Dragon had died many, many years ago. Only the bones on its spine was still complete, and its wings, feet, and tail were all mutilated. However, it still retained a third of its power from before its death. It wasn't a low-grade dragon like the male fiery dragon had been. It was a real, legendary dragon from the core area of the dragon god's domain. It could even annihilate a team of hero-rank adventurers if they dared to provoke it. This wasn't a hypothesis, because it had already happened several times. Many hero-ranked adventure teams, who came to explore the Eye of the Storm, had been swallowed after waking it up. Now, the people who were fighting against the Bone Dragon were the strongest partners of the White Lotus Sword Palace, White Lotus and Red Lotus, and Yunshi's childhood sweetheart, Hua Hua. After waking up, they found that they were trapped on the Mist Island. Finally, they encountered the Bone Dragon. Then, the battle between them started and had lasted for half a month. The battle was really tough, because this dead dragon was the strongest monster in the mist. If you only considered its power, it was even stronger than any of the three high priestesses. In the water god's world, the bone dragon had almost become a symbol of disaster. Every time it walked out of the mist, it would wreak havoc in this world. The dragon had died many years ago. Naturally, it was hostile to all living beings. When Hua and the twin witches appeared on its territory, it immediately noticed them and launched a rabid attack. Now, the battle had entered its final stage. Why is it chasing us? Tightly holding the Red Lotus holy sword in her hand, Red Lotus gasped with profuse sweating. Perhaps it's because it's too ugly. White Lotus' face looked pale. She was already exhausted. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Hua shouted. It wasn't because of the bone dragon, but because of her instinct as Yunxi's childhood sweetheart. Her jealousy radar. A strand of her hair was stretching and wiggling on her head. She instinctively sensed that something very bad was happening in this world, but she couldn't go to stop it. My little she must be in a big trouble. I should have found him and been beside him by now, but this blasted bone dragon has me trapped here. How dare you stop me on way to find my love? You will die horribly. Hua lifted her sword and adjusted her breath, then said decisively, Shea Longness, I agree to your offer. I will join your camp and fight against this world's god. This world must hate us then. Such a world shouldn't exist. Obviously, the Sky Sword heard Hua's words. Green dewdrops dripped down from the sky and permeated into Hua's skin, restoring her physical strength and energy rapidly. It seems that the Sky Sword is satisfied with Hua's decision, sister. We should also make our choice. White Lotus counted her fingers, trying to divine this world's secret. After coming into this world, they were always surrounded by this world's hostility. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been thrown onto the Mist Island and hunted by one of the strongest monsters in this world. The Bone Dragon had already firmly locked onto them. Once the Bone Dragon found them, it would rush them and attack them without any hesitation. To be honest, I don't want to make this decision, but it seems that we have no choice. Red Lotus wiped away the sweat on her forehead. In fact, when the Twin Witches and Hua teamed up, they were not inferior to the Bone Dragon. However, the Bone Dragon had a very disturbing ability. No matter how many times it had been torn to rags, it could recover within a few seconds. With this ability, it was almost unbeatable. They had a strange feeling that the world's determination was trying to trap them on Mist Island, so it sent out the Bone Dragon. The only way to leave the island was the whispers they occasionally heard when they were fighting. I'm Shea Longness, the Sky Sword. Join my camp and become my subordinates. I will confer you the power to kill this dragon. However, Hua and the Twin Witches didn't accept the Sky Sword's invitation immediately. They beat down the Bone Dragon over and over again, displaying their strong and horrible power. Unfortunately, the Bone Dragon could also revive over and over again. Apart from this, the island was surrounded by a very strong magical ward, so they couldn't leave the island easily. Now, they had really reached an impasse. I, White Lotus. I, Red Lotus. I, Hua. After killing the Bone Dragon and witnessing it reviving again, the three girls finally made their choice. We choose to join the Sky Sword's camp. Very good. You are making the right choice. This world is a mistake. It shouldn't exist, and I'm the person who will correct this mistake. Shea Longness said. As her voice echoed in the clouds, countless green threads dropped from the sky, shredding open the mist and locked the Bone Dragon down on the ground. Leave. You will become the heroes to save this world. In the name of Shea Longness, I confer upon you the power to win against this world. 3 green gems dropped from the sky and were embedded onto the Twin Witches and Hua's foreheads. Instantly, they found that the strange feeling of being rejected by the world's determination disappeared. Is this the power of a Sky Sword? Hua felt the power on her forehead. Some flame-like emotion was burning inside her eyes. Finally, that strange feeling disappeared. White Lotus let out a sigh of relief. Because the world was blocking her, for the first time, she couldn't predict the future with the great circulation. Why? Why is this world so hostile to us? Are we really not allowed to come into this world? Chapter 227. The Mermaid Queen's Requirement in the Beautiful, Sparkling Shell Palace. The Mermaid Queen gazed at Yuan-shi with an unpleasant look. Her beautiful big eyes looked aggrieved, as if she was a bad-tempered child. Why did you choose the Lamias first? Yuan-shi embarrassedly looked at the queen and did not know what to say. The queen's charm was apparently different than the Lamia queen. Her skin was more white, and her temperament was more pure. Apart from her fishtail, she looked no different from a human. She was a pretty woman, shining and sparkling. When she smiled with her mouth closed and looked at Yuan-shi with her innocent eyes, Yuan-shi even felt slightly guilty, as if he had just done something wrong. I know. I can't do that and last for 7 days and 7 nights like the Lamias, but I can do my best. The queen complained in a sad tone. Why? Why did she know that? Yuan-shi was dumbfounded. I had never told her anything about what happened between the Lamia queen and himself. In front of the sea demon's mirror, he was captivated by the Lamia queen's charm. They didn't have time to take their last step, but they had tried everything up to that. Once the Lamia queen let down her guard, she behaved like a young girl first awakening to love. She left a wonderful memory for Yuan-shi. Humph. I will let you see what a mermaid's secret potion can do. I can do everything the Lamias can do. The queen ground her teeth with a determined look. It was jealousy. Her cute face looked as if she was a girl whose favorite toy was just taken away by her best friend. After making up her mind, she took out a bottle of blue potion, then drunk it in one big gulp. The next moment, something fantastic happened. The queen's fishtail gradually became smaller and smaller, until finally, her fishtail turned into a pair of human feet. Yuan-shi was shocked into silence. After becoming a human, the queen looked even more enchanting. Even her light blue priest robe couldn't hide her beauty. Her ice-white skin emanated a flower-like fragrance. Her big eyes looked as clear as a pair of blue sapphires. Under the soft light in the temple, the queen's face was extremely beguiling. I can agree to your proposal, but I have a requirement. The queen gently blowed in Yuan-shi's ear. Do whatever you have done to the Lamia queen twice to me. I won't concede to her. From her childhood, she always lost to her best friend, the queen of deep-sea demons, the Lamia queen. The Lamia queen entered the hero rank faster than her and became her race's leader sooner than her. Even the size of the Lamia queen's breasts was bigger than hers. Due to her racial superiority, humans trusted her more. Apart from this, she had never defeated the Lamia queen once. Although she was already the queen of the mermaid race, the mermaids liked romance, and she wasn't an exception. She looked forward to having a perfect lover. As a queen who liked to read human romance novels, she had imagined the appearance of her lover countless times. The man must be very strong. At the same time, the man would be very mature and reliable. The man must accept all her weaknesses and love her without reservation. The last and the most important thing is, her lover can't be inferior to the Lamia queen's lover. Yuan-shi perfectly met her requirements. There was only one deviation. He had become the Lamia queen's lover first. Why didn't I realize it earlier? The Lamia queen and I are the best friends from our childhoods. Naturally, she also likes the things I like. Our requirements for our lovers are the same. When such a perfect man came to her, how would she not want to marry him? Probably, when this man first visited the Celian temple, I and the Lamia queen had fallen in love at first sight. As the water god's high priestesses, they had no resistance to this man who was beloved by the god. When they knew his wish, they all chuckled to themselves. However, I didn't expect that the Lamias would be the first. How could such a thing be allowed? This time, I won't lose. Therefore, I drank the secret potion of the mermaids to prove that I'm not inferior to the Lamias. I can do whatever Lamias can do, the queen repeated. She lowered her head with unease, ungracefully walking to Yuan-shi with her newborn human legs. Her red lips closely covered Yuan-shi's lips. Soon after, Yuan-shi's desire defeated his intellect. He held the queen's body in his arms tightly and responded to her enthusiasm with all his strength. This was what the queen expected and wanted. Her body trembled as her lips became hot. She fell upon Yunshi's neck and drank in his kiss. Chapter 228. The Mermaid Queen likes immorality as if the sky and earth were spinning round. The Mermaid Queen was drunk in her own sweet dream. She had forgotten her identity as the water god's high priestess and her glory as a queen. At this moment, she only remembered the happiness she had found, only when she was in Yunshi's arms. Ah, is this what the Lamias experienced? I can feel the happiness emerging from the bottom of my heart. Is this what they call love? Her body became hot and her eyes became watery. She ground her teeth and groaned. Yunshi's hands roamed all over her body as his mouth kissed her forehead, eyes, chin, and breasts. Through her clothes, the queen could still feel Yunshi's hot breath. She blushed, but she didn't resist him. Her body had become more sensitive after drinking the mermaid's secret potion. As Yunshi kissed her, a thrill went through her spine and directly into her brain. Her snow-white face was covered with a layer of pink. She groaned, unintentionally rubbed against Yunshi's hard body. Is this what you have done with the Lamias? The queen looked at Yunshi with her watery eyes and enthusiastically cooperated with his moves as her body trembled. Although your reactions are much more intense, naturally, Yunshi remembered the Lamia queen's soft body. Compared to Lamia's special body structure, the mermaid queen's body wasn't that soft, but her skin was more tender, more intense. The queen emitted a seductive groan. She knew that Yunshi and the Lamia queen had not only done these things, they should have had a more intimate relationship. Then make it become much more intense, the queen entreated. Yunshi hesitated for a while, then responded to her desires. He gently and slowly held her head in his arms, then softly took off her priest robe, which was already in a fearful mess. After the last of her upper clothes were dropped to the ground from the queen's own delicate fingers, the queen of the sea finally exposed her snow-white, naked upper body in front of Yunshi. Yunshi didn't hesitate. Instead, he stretched out his right hand and put it on the queen's pure white leg. Yunshi's fingers stroked her smooth, silk-like skin, and the wonderful feeling made it hard for him to take his hand off. Yunshi's hand shook with overexcitement. He slowly moved his hand to her ankle and softly rubbed it. Her smooth ankle was so pleasing to the touch, making him like it so much that he could hardly bear to put it down. The queen shyly put her white jade-like feet in front of Yunshi. With a sudden compulsion, Yunshi's warm palms held her left foot carefully, as if it would fly away at any time. No matter how long he looked at or stroked her toes, he couldn't get tired of it. "Do you like my feet?" the queen asked Yunshi with a very seductive voice. "Yes, this is my weapon. I've drunk the mermaid's secret potion." It's my trump card that I can use to defeat the Lamia queen. After all, the Lamia race doesn't have this kind of fantastic potion. At this level, I have a special treasure that the Lamias would never have.
Yes.
Yunshi fascinatedly looked at the queen's crystal white legs and her graceful body. "After we have married, I will let you do whatever you want of me. It will be a much better experience than what you have experienced from the Lamias." The mermaid queen put her feet on Yunshi's legs and enticed him. "Now, do what you have done with the Lamias to me." At this moment, Yunshi only wanted to cry, but failed to shed a tear. Really? It was embarrassing to remember what I have done with the Lamia queen. Do I really need to do them again? In the crystal-clear sea palace, they held and kissed each other as their souls went to a spiritual paradise together. The queen emitted cute sounds from her mouth, enjoying the happy time with Yunshi. Oh, he must be the best lover. The queen was drunk with her unethical game. Every time she remembered that she was playing with the Lamia queen's lover, she couldn't stop the thrill of stealing another person's lover from going through her spine. "Lamia queen, I'm not inferior to you. Since you can obtain the best lover in this world, I can obtain him too. Do you remember? When we were still young and talked about what we would do when we fell in love. I will devote myself to my lover with all my heart and soul, the young Lamia queen had said at that time. I will do whatever for my lover, no matter how shameful it will be. The queen remembered her answer. It must be a crime to steal my best friend's lover. However, why am I so excited? Chapter 229. The bell is ringing. The mermaid queen's cute sounds echoed inside the old palace. On the sparkling surface of the water, the waves of love were rippling. Puff, puff, la 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 la. Oh, oh, oh. The whispers which had appeared in the Lamia queen's palace also echoed in the water, as if it was singing. The next morning. Does this mean the two high priestesses have all accepted my proposal? Did Yun Kei already expect this result? Looking at the queen who was sleeping soundly beside him, she smiled bitterly. Except for the last step, he and she had done everything last night. I can't be an upright gentleman any longer. However, why did the Lamia queen and the mermaid queen trust me so much? Even though I'm the water god's apostle, they still behaved too credulous, as if they were just two naive young girls. If I really was a scumbag, they would have had a very heart-rending ending. Sorry. I hope I won't become a bad memory for you. Yunshi sighed and touched the queen's face with his fingers. On his white emperor mask, there were already 3 different hero-ranked auras inside 3 horns. The first was from Black Moon, the mysterious dark elf and the commander of his Mist Soul army. The second was from the Lamia queen, the queen of sea demons and the water god's high priestess. The third was from the mermaid queen, the queen of the mermaid race and the water god's high priestess. It seemed that every time he had a hero-ranked bride, the white emperor mask would naturally project the bride's aura inside one of the horns. Their power had indeed been overlapped onto Yunshi's body, and their Mist Souls had also become the hero units in Yunshi's Mist Soul army. I propose to you because I need your power. Can you forgive me? Yunshi felt guilty for his behavior. The stars above, is this all really necessary? Maybe Yun Kei was right. I'm no good as a so-called emperor, because I don't have such a wild ambition. However, this world's god still chose me and conferred to me the false power of the emperor mask. I have to take the responsibility for that and move forward. I forgive you. I will forgive you for whatever you have done or will do. The queen opened her blue eyes and looked at Yunshi. She knew he was going to leave. You have the right to do that, and whatever you will choose to do. Remember that I will always be on your side. This is a timeless promise of mine. Yunshi shook his head. She didn't understand. This isn't a real world. She, the Lamias, and all the people in this world are just living in a dream. Maybe it is because this dream is too real. I had almost thought that I had really come to an old world and married these beautiful girls. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. Yunshi muttered in a sad tone. He helped the queen tuck herself in bed and embarked on his journey again. When I dream of a butterfly, do I dream of being a butterfly? Or did the butterfly dream of being me? The queen looked at Yunshi's back and showed a strange smile on her face. My God, the future you are looking forward to is coming. Puff, puff. Yeah, yeah. Wait, for. A voice came from nowhere, echoing around the queen's ears with the fresh smell of the sea. In Celian, the city of water, the bell of blessing was ringing through the skies. After finding where it was from, people looked at the water god temple in surprise. This bell of blessing would only ring at a very special moment. The last time the bell rang was on the day of the Celian queen's enthronement. The bell just rang 18 times, which represented the highest blessing of the city. It's strange. Today isn't a festival. Why did the bell ring? It rang 18 times. Anything good happened? I don't know. I didn't hear any rumors. The residents looked at the water god temple's bell tower in confusion. On the tall bell tower, the Celian queen, dressed in a white robe, was shaking the scepter in her hands with a gentle smile. The Lamia Queen and the Mermaid Queen had each accepted the apostle's proposal. Naturally, it was worth celebrating. Perhaps this news would spread around the whole city soon after. Of course, people would know the apostle wanted to marry as many brides as he could. As the highest human priestess, she could clearly sense the coming of a brand new era. In the forests, caves, and on the mountains, and even in the deep sea, countless slimes were gathering in crowds and groups and evolving. Now, not too many people had realized how powerful these little things would become, because these slimes would expose their fangs soon. The Sky Sword's coming was unstoppable. She, the Lamia Queen, and the Mermaid Queen had all known it, because the water god was looking forward to the Sky Sword's coming. My God, have you found your love? Have you found your bride? If he means the end of this world, we will also accept this result, because he is the only chosen one. As the Celian Queen whispered, a cloud of mist was flying into the city. With unease and befuddlement in his heart, Yunshi arrived at the top of the water god temple and landed in front of the Celian Queen. Indeed, water gods' apostles had also appeared several times in the past, but they wouldn't appear in front of the public like this apostle. They were not humans, but from an old race. The water gods selected them to investigate the abnormal occurrences in this world. However, this apostle was a human, and he had the white emperor mask, which represented the highest authority from the water god. It was really unimaginable for her. This man was the one who was beloved by the god. After seeing Yunshi, her faith was shaken. I'm guilty. I shouldn't doubt my God. She had to kneel in the temple to purge her sins. How lucky you are. The queen held Yunshi's hand and kissed the back of his hand. What's the feeling like to be loved by a god? It must be a fantastic, heaven-like feeling. If possible, I really want to take your place, even if I will go to hell after that. Do you know how envious I am? Yunshi looked at the queen in surprise. For the first time, he knew the queen's real feelings. When he stayed with the queen before, he only felt a sacred aura from her. Her temperament was saintly, and inside of her eyes, there were infinite mists. They were the purest energy of faith, so her body wasn't flesh and blood any longer. Maybe her strength was inferior to the Lamia queen, but her divine spell was undoubtedly the strongest. Is such a jealousy strange? I thought that after I devote myself to the great world, nothing in this world could make my heart shake. Since my childhood, I always longed to come here and become the person who is closest to the god. Finally, at the age of 25, I achieved my goal of becoming a high priestess. For this, I left my family and abandoned my wealth. After losing everything, I finally came to this place. I had never regretted my choice, because I have expected all the difficulties from the beginning. The queen touched the old bell and remembered her past life. How many years had passed? What was it like when I was still a young girl? As the water god's high priestess, she was no longer a human after holding the water god's scepter in her hand. She had even forgotten her name and was only to be called the Celian Queen. She remembered it now. When she was still a young girl, she once ran and played on the city streets. She had also had a carefree childhood. It's strange. Why do I remember these things now? Maybe it's because I'm getting married. I will marry this child, the child who was standing in front of me with a clueless look. Chapter 231. The Door of Memories. When did I forget that I am a human also, instead of just the water god's high priestess and the Celian queen? She felt that it was already a long, long time ago, which was a time much older than all her memories. Why did I make that decision and arrive at this point? The door of her memories gradually opened. When she was 5 years old, she was just a carefree little princess. Her family was a branch of the imperial family, so she could have lived a charmed life. Elizabeth, you are one of the candidates for the next Celian queen. Elizabeth, if it's you, I know you can be the queen. Elizabeth, why don't you have a try? Why don't you want to be the queen? From a very young age, she always heard similar words from various people, which made her feel confused and angry. Why do I have to be the queen? Was I born just to be a candidate for the next queen only? What will I be after I've become a queen? The Celian city's imperial family was formed by the relatives of the first several high priestesses. As time went by, they formed a stable blood lineage. Because their bloodline conferred them great talent in practicing divine spells, most Celian queens were from this family. Although they didn't declare it to the public, but the whole world had regarded them as the Celian imperial family. Elizabeth was the first high priestess's name. She never married during her long life and devoted her whole life to the great water god. She was the person who was closest to the god. After that, once talented girls were born in the imperial family, people would call them Elizabeth, hoping that they could become the next high priestess. Her family was one of the imperial family's branches. As a girl who had great divine spell talent, she wasn't an exception. There were also a dozen of girls who had the same name, and they were educated by their families no matter the costs. I don't want to be the queen. Oh, now she remembered. At the beginning, she didn't want to be the queen at all, because she thought that people's fates shouldn't have been decided for them by their births. I just looked pretty and my bloodline talent is slightly better than others. Why do I have to be called Elizabeth and must be perfect in everything? The courses of divine spells were difficult. I wanted to run, to play, to enjoy a free life. At the age of 8, the dissatisfaction in my heart finally came to a head. So she ran away from her family. In order to have a free life, she secretly left the Celian city and decided that she would never come back. If to be the queen is the best future I can have, let it go to hell. Yes, I was so rebellious at that time. It's incredible. The Celian queen gently smiled as she watched the little girl in her memories. Wearing a big straw hat on her head and a pair of white leather boots on her feet, accompanied by her big loyal dog, she left the city. Where should I go? What will I do? She had had a plan in her heart. She could use her divine spells. Although she didn't want to be the queen, she wouldn't refuse to take this on for a living. She was only 8 years old, but she received a good education. Once she found a place of refuge and hid there for several years, she would be totally free. Yes, at that time, she thought that it was a very easy thing to do. After leaving her family, even the air could let her feel free. This is a wonderful world. I can achieve my goals easily. All people are living a common and peaceful life. Why must I accept the fate to be a pathetic queen? It's not fair. She didn't hate being called Elizabeth, but she wanted to be a free, happy Elizabeth. I will create a happy future with my hands. I will take control of my life and won't let anybody tell me what to do. At the first, the journey was happy. She met a friendly caravan and several uncles and aunts who were very kind to her. They were the owners of the caravan. They traveled amongst the islands in this world, trading different goods to the people in different places. She gradually became a member of this new big family. She wasn't a pampered princess anymore, because there was only an Elizabeth who was working very hard for living in the caravan. The more places she had visited with the caravan, the more understanding about this world she had. The water god's world was a very fertile world. It was a land flowing with milk and honey, and no one would die in hunger, because this world was a promised land that had been blessed by the god. People in this world all believed in the old and great water god. In all cities and villages, there must be a water god's high altar. The water god was a very great god. The more places she had visited, the more she realized it. The water god's human high priestess, which also meant the Celian queen, was more sacred and lofty than she had imagined. It was definitely not a position that could be inherited by a girl from a branch of the imperial family easily. The people who wanted to be the water god's high priestess would be tested many times. They must have great talent in divine spellcasting and have reached the hero rank. After that, they would be allowed to hold the water god's scepter, and the result would decide if they could become the god spokesperson. So the queen was so great a person. She was vaguely beginning to understand how special her bloodline was. Is the first Elizabeth's blood also flowing in my body? If so, It's not too that unacceptable to know my family wanted me to become the queen. However, I won't be the queen. I have decided to be a free traveling merchant. This idea is much simpler and easier compared to being a superior queen. Chapter 232. That day, she gave up on practicing the complex divine spells and reciting the head-scratching religious doctrine every day. After becoming a member of the caravan, she only needed to learn the knowledge of trading and enjoy the days of travel. In the caravan, no one could live an extravagant life without working hard with their own hands. Every time they passed by a village, she would record the village's special local products in her notebook. She imagined that one day, she would bring her own caravan back to the villages and trade with the villagers, just like what the current caravan had done. It seemed that it wasn't an impossible dream. Compared to being the queen, this future was much better in her heart. As time went by, she had followed the caravan traveling around the world for a whole year and learned how to buy and sell goods bit by bit. She was a smart little girl. 1 year later, although she was still only 9 years old, she was already able to buy and sell goods alone. Every time when the caravan stopped and rested in a city or a village, she would spread out goods to sale in her own booth. Although she couldn't earn a lot from this, she still felt happy because she was indeed walking forward on the road to the future that she wanted to have. Before that day, she always believed that she could be an excellent merchant. Perhaps a few years later, she would be able to team up with the young children in the caravan and form a new caravan with them. And this was what the adults in the caravan were happy to see. They always looked at these brave young children with their warm eyes and encouraged them to do whatever they wanted to do. At the beginning of history, there was only one caravan in the whole of Water God's world. As time went by, the children in the caravan gradually grew up and left the caravan. They teamed up and formed new caravans one by one, because they believed that they were trying to build a better future for all of the Water God's world. People believed that they should give the credit to the great Water God, because the Water God was blessing all living beings in this world, so that this world could be so prosperous and vibrant. However, the world wasn't always peaceful. Even in such a beautiful world, there were still horrible things out there. It was a sunny morning. Elizabeth was looking at the distant sky. Pink clouds floated in the sky as if they were some shy, blushing girls, and behind the clouds, the sun half exposed its red face. After a while, the clouds faded away and the sun rose. Everything on the ground was basking in the bright sunlight. What a nice day. We should set out on our journey now. Elizabeth, let's go. For some reason, as everyone were bursting with happiness, Elizabeth suddenly sensed a special feeling. Her bloodline made her uneasy, as if it was warning her that something was coming. Unfortunately, she didn't understand that warning from her bloodline at that time. Soon after, the whole caravan embarked on the journey and slowly moved onto the safe route. However, about 2 hours later, the mist around them suddenly became cold and damp. As gusts of wind blew over the whole caravan from the mist, the sunny sky darkened as the mist became thicker and thicker. No, it's mist tide. That can't be true. The mist tide shouldn't come at this time. Run, run. Just leave the goods here. Run as fast as you can. Why is everyone so scared? Why is everyone's face turning pale? Unfortunately, the mist had surrounded the unlucky caravan. After a few seconds, the huge mist tide had swallowed the whole caravan. No, I don't want to die. God, please save us. At least, please save my child. The great water god, help us. The people reverently prayed. However, it couldn't save them. Mist tide was one of the most dangerous natural disasters in the water god's world. If the fertile land and the sweet fountains were the gods blessing the world, then the unpredictable mist tide was all the world's nightmare. No one knew what would happen to the people who were involved in the mist tide, because no one had ever returned from it. That day, after witnessing what happened in the mist tide, for the first time, Elizabeth realized how feeble and naive she was. The uncles and aunts, who had been considered to be her families, froze and was swallowed in front of her by the mist. An unknown horrible monster came with the mist tide and ate the people of the caravan one by one in front of her. Her friends, the boys and girls who had promised that they would form a new caravan and work around the world with her, cried and struggled in the monster's paws. However, their struggle was meaningless. The monster slowly and ruthlessly ate Elizabeth's friends, breaking all her dreams about her future. Elizabeth, if you can be the queen, I believe that you will be a good queen. Elizabeth, the queen is very special. Elizabeth, you are beloved by the god. The monster didn't eat Elizabeth, although it stared at her with a great greed, but it sensed a very special aura from her, which made it hesitate for a very long while and finally left reluctantly. At that moment, Elizabeth finally understood what the queen's bloodline meant. Even if she had only a little part of the first queen's bloodline, she was still special. Maybe this was the reason why the monster was scared away. She finally understood how feeble and naive she was. After losing everything, she returned to her family. When she picked up the divine spell book again, she cried and blamed herself because she didn't study hard in the past. If I had mastered the strong divinity spells in the book, I could have defeated the monster in the mist and changed the whole caravan's miserable fate. After that, she matured overnight. She realized the importance of her bloodline and the fate she would carry on her back. This world wasn't as wonderful as she thought before. There were monsters in the mist and demons in people's nightmare. This world also had its dark side. Chapter 233, The Origin of the Mist Tide. It was a periodic, uncontrollable natural disaster in the water god's world. Since the beginning of history, mist tide had never completely disappeared. Mortals couldn't walk into the mist and look steadily at the mist. Once the mist tide rose, they could only pray to the great water god. Apart from this, there was no way to escape from the mist tide. No matter if it was human, mermaid, or lamia, no race could fight against the mist tide alone. Mist tide was unpredictable. It could appear at any time and any place. In the sky, on the ground, across the sea. Once the infinite mist gathered together and swept through the world, everything would drop into quiescence. Elizabeth once studied the mist tide from books and had had an in-depth knowledge about this natural disaster. Once living beings were involved into the mist tide, only very few lucky people would have a narrow escape from it. After deeply and thoroughly investigating all the tales, she found that they were all due to the water god's power. When they were enveloped in the mist tide, few survived. Of those that did, some were holding ancient family treasures, and some were born with a special bloodline just like her. A few survivors left notes, in which they recorded their experiences. From these records, the mist tide wasn't caused by some unknown monster. It really was a special natural disaster. Some survivors saw endless ice winds sweep through the ground. Then their partners were frozen and turned to snow. Some survivors met the monster Elizabeth had seen, looking at the monster eating their friends one by one. Some survivors started hallucinating. They saw countless demon butterflies flying in the air and taking living souls to the underworld. The dangers in the mist tide wasn't always the same. Compared to having strong power, having strong luck was much more important when you tried to escape from the mist tide. Though hero-rank creatures couldn't escape alone from the mist tide either. The more she discovered about the mist tide, the more Elizabeth understood how ridiculous her dream of forming a new caravan and traveling around the world was. Every year, there would be over 1/3 of the caravans and 1/10 of the entire world's population that disappeared in the mist tide. Mist tide was like an immutable rule in this world, swallowing living beings coldly and mercilessly. Then, what can I do to change this rule? What can I do for a better world? Mortals can't stop the mist tide. If I become stronger and obtain the great water god's blessing, can I change everything? That day, Elizabeth lost her best friends and her dream. However, another dream was born in her heart. She knew she could accomplish her wish someday because she had the first Elizabeth's bloodline. She wanted to change this world. She wanted to protect the people of the caravans. There were many, many girls in this world who could become a traveling merchant. However, there was only one Elizabeth who could become the water god's high priestess to protect people. After realizing this, Elizabeth finally found the goal of her life. I don't want to see Mist Tide happening ever again. My bloodline protected me from the Mist Tide. Therefore, there must be a reason for my survival. While reading the record about the Mist Tide, Elizabeth moved her eyes to the water god's scepter, which could only be obtained by the water god's high priestess. If I become the new Celian queen and obtain the scepter, can the power inside it help me find the secret of the Mist Tide and change this world? She thought, then she did. After giving up her dream of being a merchant, nothing could stop her now. She came to a small village and became an unknown priestess. With that goal in her heart, she kept moving on her personal advancement. Compared to other Elizabeth, who were still being protected like princesses, she lived a hard life and put in 10 times the effort. Her talent wasn't the best amongst all the Elizabeths, but she was the hardest working one. Finally, she succeeded. At the age of 25, the previous Celian queen retired and all priestesses took part in the selective trial of the new Celian queen. As a black horse, she defeated all other candidates and ascended to the throne as the new queen. When she held the water god's scepter in her hand and shook the rings on it, she realized that she had obtained the key to change this world. Then, the first thing she did was to go to the most dangerous forbidden zone in this world. It was an island in the northernmost part of the world, where it was covered with endless mist and was known as the origin of all mist tides in this world. There, she witnessed a part of the mist tide's truth and the deathless bone dragon. Without any hesitation, she challenged the most horrible monster in the Mist Tide, the Bone Dragon. 7 days and 7 nights later, in order to escape from the Bone Dragon, she fell off into the sea and was saved by the Lamia Queen eventually. It's a forbidden zone, even to us Lamias. Don't make the same mistake again, because there exists a huge nightmare and is the Mist Demon's habitat. Chapter 234. Her wish, you are the only person who is beloved by the water god. Can you help me solve the biggest mystery in this world? If you can, I will marry you. I can agree to your proposal right now. After telling the silver-masked apostle her past, the Celian queen sat beside the apostle and looked at his mask. Miss Demon, she touched his mask with a complex look. If I'm not wrong, the power in my White Emperor mask is called Infinite Mist Power, and it should be the biggest disaster in this world. Yes, I can sense the fear I had once tasted from your mask. As I remember it now, this world is blessed by the water god, but also needs to undertake a corresponding curse. No one could obtain a god's love without any reason. As a price, we must fight against the monsters in the mist. Maybe we can't defeat the most dangerous mist demon, but I want to know what it is. At the very least, we should try and find a way to stop it. The queen shook the water god's scepter with a sad look. The silver holy rings on the scepter reverberated with clear and melodious sounds. From that year forward, this wish was always hovering in her heart. It was her biggest motivation to be the high priestess and the deepest nightmare in her dreams. In her dream, she was still the 9-year-old Elizabeth and had to watch her friends disappear one by one. They were once so many vivid lives in this world, and now, they were just some cold words on the list of the Mist Tide's victims. Why? This is a world that is blessed by the water god. Why is there such a dreadful disaster? What is in the sea area that is covered with endless mist? What is the thing that is causing the periodic disaster? She thought that perhaps the water god knew it, so she tried to be the high priestess because she wanted to get the answer from the god. She wanted to be the person that was closest to the god, and she thought that she could achieve this goal eventually. Unfortunately, she wasn't the chosen one of this world. Even though she had become the Celian queen and the high priestess, she couldn't go a step further. She wasn't the god's most favorite one, neither the Lamia queen nor the mermaid queen. It is the silver-masked apostle. He is the one who is blessed and beloved by the god. She finally realized that she couldn't achieve her wish by herself. Before that, she had wasted several days thinking about it. She was very confused and sad, and even started to doubt her faith in her god. Finally, she found an answer for herself. She wouldn't be the person who would solve the biggest disaster in this world, neither any other water god's high priestesses. Only the silver-masked apostle could solve the mystery and change this world. And now, this man was standing in front of her, close enough to touch. Is this okay? Is that all? Yun, she asked the queen in an uneasy accent. What a coincidence. The water god conferred me the unique white emperor mask, which could control the endless mist, and the love system of the stars also published a quest about the mist all over this world. That is to say, even if the queen didn't make this request, I will still go to find the mist demon and expose the secret in the mist. Yes, that's all I want. As long as you agree to my request, I will marry you, even if you failed to find the final answer eventually. I know I'm not as beautiful as the Lamia queen, and I'm not as gentle as the mermaid queen, but I will do my best to be your wife. As for the things you have done to the Lamia queen and the mermaid queen, I will try to get accustomed to doing them. Speaking of this, the Celian queen's face turned bright red. There was a very special interaction amongst the sea demon's mirror, the mermaid queen's relic, and her water god's scepter. Therefore, more or less, she had vaguely known what had happened before. If this is what you want, Yun, she took a deep breath and looked at the queen seriously. When he listened to the queen's past experiences, he felt the strong emotions in her heart. In other people's eyes, she was the unassailable Celian queen, but in her own heart, her life had ended that day. Her life had been frozen at the age of 9, when her friends were swallowed by the mist. In order to redeem the mistake, which actually wasn't her responsibility from the beginning, she did her best and finally became the Celian queen. No one knew it was simply because she wanted to know the origin of the mist tide and what took away her friends' lives. Her time had stopped since that day. At this moment, in Yunshi's eyes, she wasn't the queen but just a 9-year-old little girl, unaided and restless. I will change this. I will let the clock of her time turn again. Since I have been conferred the white emperor mask, it won't be a problem to walk into the mist. Isn't it a nice-sounding idea to help the Celian queen achieve her wish in the middle of my exploration? I promise. I will do it. I will find an answer for you, Yunshi said with determination. The queen looked at Yunshi and smiled. Yes, this is it, the only solution to my befuddlement, weight, and self-doubt. The only way to accomplish my wish from the age of 9. Thank you. Then I agree. I will be your bride. Putting down the water god's scepter, the Celian queen, the 13th Elizabeth, gently kissed Yunshi's lips. Remember, the promise must be followed. Chapter 235. Canary for the first time. Elizabeth the Queen kissed someone. Naturally, her kiss was unpracticed. To her, this was a kiss, and also a promise which must be followed. She wasn't as perfect as people thought. Even after becoming the water god's high priestess, the obsession in her heart never faded away. I want to be the person who is closest to the god simply because I want to satisfy my self-desire. As expected, such a woman won't be beloved by the god. After realizing this, she gave up and put her hope on Yunshi. Since I can't do it, maybe he, the most beloved apostle of the god, can accomplish it. He had become her last hope. Sorry, I'm too cunning, but a human is such a strange creature. I can't be carefree like the Lamia queen and the mermaid queen. I have too many responsibilities on my back. Even so, you still want to marry me? Can you accept such a woman like me? The Celian queen's confession was totally different than the Lamia queen's and the mermaid queen's. Yunshi was like a mirror that had clearly reflected her weaknesses. No one is perfect in this universe. Even the supreme god also makes mistakes. Yunshi stretched out his hand and held the queen's frail hand tightly. Compared to you, I'm like a scumbag. I have had so many brides and I will still marry many more girls. As a human, I'm much worse than you. The Celian queen looked at Yun, she with a flabbergasted expression. What are you saying? You're at the hero rank and beloved by the god. It's your responsibility to marry as many brides as you can. In order to fight against the mistide, excellent men, especially hero-ranked men, should do their best to leave their bloodlines in this world. It's a basic rule of our society. Don't you remember? Yunshi was dumbfounded. Oh, I forgot this world's special environment. But I will marry 1,000,000 brides. 1,000,000 women? Isn't that ridiculous? If it's you, you have the right to do this. You are beloved by the god, so you are doomed to change this world. The queen held Yunshi's hands and put them on the front of her chest. Listen, these are my heartbeats. Looking at the queen with his scorching eyes now, Yunshi's fingers moved across her soft peaks. On the tall tower of the water god temple, in front of the old big bell, the Celian queen's body was covered in the warm sunlight. Her soft breasts were half covered by the white priest robe, but looked much more seductive. The queen looked at Yunshi with her shy eyes and asked, "Is this what lovers should do?" She stretched out her fingers and pointed at Yunshi's chin. Imitating Yunshi's action, her fingers slowly moved down. At the same time, Yunshi's fingers had moved to the queen's waist. The queen stood on her toes and looked straight at Yunshi's eyes. Finally, their fingers crossed together, feeling the hot temperature of each other's hands. Their faces were so close that they could even feel each other's breath.